I think we're live. I think we're live. I'll give a salute and give YouTube a moment to catch up. When we do live streams, that intro, that momentary intro, always slightly awkward. But welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris, and you're watching the weekly Spinner Rack, a show where we're going to talk about the latest comic book news. A lot of stuff getting announced just ahead of New York Comic Con. A surprising amount of news from some publishers like Dynamite and IDW. That'll be fun to talk about. Some obviously big new comics that came out this week that we'll have to look over. I mean, there was some really fun stuff out there. Terminator was a good one. Ultimates was surprisingly strong. And before we get to any of that, we're gonna have a guest. We're gonna do a short interview here. I'm excited to have this guy on. I've never talked face to face really, other than like a few seconds before we went online. But I have read some of this writer's work. We're gonna have on Mr. Brandon Montclare, and you may know him from his work at DC and Vertigo. You may know his comic series from Image, creator-owned Rocket Girl. There's a great chance you've at least heard of, if not read and watched, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. But he's got a new book coming out, and that's what we're going to build up to. Folks, please be kind and welcome our guest, Mr. Brandon Montclaire. Hello. Brandon, it's normal to ask, how are you doing tonight? But I know from a second ago, like not perfect.
Yeah, so, just my younger daughter, she's 8. She's been sick the last couple of days, and it's hitting me now, but we should be okay. Do I return the salute? I don't know the protocol. I don't.
It's whatever you're comfortable with. We sometimes do double salutes here to like show extra deference and respect. So, I accept. Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. I like your T-shirt. Halloween 3 is the second best Halloween movie, I think.
This is Halloween 3 Part 2.
Oh, I don't even. Well, what is that?
That is a fictional film, but on this channel, sometimes I also do sort of schlock movie reviews with Jim Mafood. And we have an upcoming episode with Rob Schraub, Scud the Disposable Assassin, and various like TV and film things. And he made this fake shirt of Halloween 3 Part 2. It is a good movie, but thank you.
I like Halloween 3. Yeah,
I do too. I think in another day and age, if they had maybe even just dropped the number 3 from it, it probably would have gone over better. If you just called it like Halloween Season of the Witch or something, I think people might have respected it. But that's not what we're here for. Halloween is fun. Horror movies are fun, but we're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about you. Now, I've read some of your work that you've been a writer on, but there is one piece of your career that I'm way less familiar with. You are credited as an editor on a bunch of DC and Vertigo books. I was wondering if you'd be willing to share with us how you came to work at such a big company originally and some of the projects you worked on there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I was at DC and Vertigo for 4 years. I started downstairs, but how I got there was I had a comic. I've been kind of in one way or another employed in the comic industry since I was like 13 years old, right? 12, 13 years old. I used to sell comic books I grew up just outside of New York City. My father lived in the city. My parents were divorced. My mother lived up in the suburbs, but I used to do like the monthly shows ever since, like I said, between the summer between 8th and 9th grade. That kind of turned into buying a store up in the suburbs when I was 19 years old. It's going back a ways now. And
wow, that's so young to have gotten into that.
It was Alternate Realities in Scarsdale, New York, and it was there a good long time, but it closed closed about it's probably getting up there now, probably about 6 or 7 years ago at least that it's closed. But it was a lot of fun. But as fun as it was at 19, in my mid 20s, it wasn't so fun, and had the opportunity to relocate out to Los Angeles for a couple of years. I went back to school, got a job at Tokyo Pop because I was just always interested in comics and publishing comics. They were doing translations for the most part, but at that time they were also doing original manga. So it was like the American creators to do stuff in the manga style. It was a bit of the Wild West, but it was fun because it was my first job working kind of behind the scenes in comics. And did that for, I started as an intern there and then spent, I don't know, a year and a half working there, relocated back to New York. And yeah, I was, interested in Marvel and DC, and I wound up getting a job. I took the DC gig because I got to work with Bob Schreck, and it was all on like tremendous books. He was just finishing up his run in the Batman office. So I did some stuff on the main Batman title, but it was like just
I
such.
saw that you were on things like Batman 100.
Yeah. So Batman Year
All-Star
100,
Batman
the Matt Wagner Batman books, All-Star Batman, All-Star Superman, up in Vertigo, did Sweet Tooth, did Day Tripper, did Hellblazer for a little bit. So it was just such great books to work on that I couldn't turn it down. It was there for about
question. DC was hiring top talent at that point. I mean, just some that's a murderer's row of books that you just banged out.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. It was an amazing place to be. It's interesting though, because when you're a young guy and an editor, sometimes somebody had given me the advice that DC is a better place to end your career than begin it, and they don't mean end it like in any kind of a terrible way, but just that. It's a little bit more structured, and it's very different, obviously, than Tokyo Pop, where you basically just said, you could just raise your hand and say you're going to do something, and they'd let the intern do it. I was in charge of submissions at Tokyo Pop, and why would I at all be qualified to do that? But there it was. But no, it was just such great titles, and when you edit a book like All-Star Superman, you're not really doing much editing. You're just kind of traffic managing and stuff like that. But we got to bring in a lot of cool young artists and new artists and creators and do a lot of cool books. So it was a great learning experience. And
that's amazing. Yeah. Who were so you worked with directly with Bob Schreck, or who did you liaise with?
I worked directly with Bob Schreck. When I got there, they were just breaking up from the groups and going into two-man teams. That was just whatever for whatever reason, publishing was kind of realigning that way. So Schreck was like the Batman group editor and had like 4 or 5 people under him. But then it was going to be like, no, there'll be one junior and one senior man, and they're going to divide up the books that way. And so it was great to work with Schreck. I knew him from conventions, and so I came back to New York. I said, hey, can I pick your brain just to see what kind of the opportunities are in New York for
You've got some overlap with your current publisher, Nick Barucci. I mean, because he kind of came up like, selling comics and stuff like that in the Jersey, New York area before he got into it behind the scenes.
Yeah. I always liked, Nick and Dynamite. And I'm not just saying that because, I've only met him in passing. He probably doesn't even remember meeting me. So I'm sure I'll remedy that pretty soon, maybe at the con this weekend. But
I hope so. Yeah. I'm planning on saying hello.
I really always liked how Dynamite kind of did business, just the hustle of it. You know what I mean? And they always had stuff. And it picks up some cool licenses, does some cool stuff, and like I said, a guy who knows how to hustle. And then Schreck left, so I worked for a little bit under Karen Berger directly too, which was fun.
Oh wow, what a privilege! I've got a tremendous amount of respect for Karen Berger. I mean, there's a lot of people that help, but I always associate her with Vertigo or Vertigo with her.
Yeah. And so it was a great experience. And, my first daughter was born, and I stayed only about, a little less than a year after that because, I had the opportunity to do some writing. My wife has a pretty stable job. She's a professor of chemistry at NYU.
Very impressive.
She's tenured now. Yeah. So it was, something I said, I'll see what I can do. And I was very silly. I should have hit up DC, but I didn't want to be the guy that's like, oh, look, he was just working here. Now he's, you roll your eyes and when they're coming down the hall. So it's like, so my first work was at Marvel. I did a few.
I remember.
Yeah.
Wait, was it Fantastic Four? Was that?
Yeah, it was Fearsome Four. It was,
it
was a tie-in to the event where, why am I blanking? Fear Itself. So I got through like a 4-issue series with that, which got to work with some cool guys. Simon Bisley, it was all different artists. It was 4 different characters. It was the all-star lineup of She-Hulk, Howard the Duck, Nighthawk, Frankenstein's monster, and Man-Thing. And so it was a whole bunch of oddball characters. But
the leftovers.
Yeah, like little stories within the stories happened too. So I got to work with, Bisley did some of the art, Kaluta did some of the art.
Wow. It was you really? Kaluta did?
Yeah. Kaluta did the cover.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah. I worked with Kaluta on Madame Xanadu. After Amy Reeder's first 10 issues, Wagner wrote a 5-part thing that because Kaluta created Madame Xanadu. So at Vertigo, we had worked together on 5 issues of Madame Xanadu.
That's really cool to hear. Super underrated talent, in my opinion. And then I had the privilege of meeting Simon Beasley for the first time about a month ago at a convention. And he's never met me. He doesn't even know who I am. He just goes, "Hey, mate, you drink beer?" And I'm like, "Yes." He goes, "Here, have one." And he just gives me a beer there on the convention floor. So that's my memory.
I've more than once been the last guy in the bar with Simon Bisley, and it gets more and more interesting and fun as the hours go on. So yeah,
I love hearing that like these creators that give us entertaining stories are themselves entertaining. I am curious. You did some writing and stuff, but when did you decide to pitch? Your own creator-owned thing, like did you pitch it just to Image? Were you like talking to other people? Like, was it a casual thing of networking? Was it a formal pitch that got accepted?
Yeah, it was a little bit weird at the time going through it. I was getting the Marvel work at that point. Amy was, she didn't have the greatest, just creative differences type stuff on Batwoman. But I worked with Amy. I knew her from Tokyo Pop. She was her first work at Tokyo Pop was something I helped out with, and
she's great.
Yeah. So it was she was coming off of that, and this Kickstarter was it wasn't new, but it was kind of new for comics and whatnot. So we did a one shot called Halloween Eve, which was kind of cool, and just because she I think needed to change up. That stuff, and I said okay. And it was about a girl who works in a costume shop the day before Halloween, and she hates Halloween, right? Because she has to do it every day, and then she kind of has a little bit of a blanket on the a Christmas Carol type thing, right? So, and as a bit of an adventure, the costumes come alive, and it was that stuff like that. And we did pretty well with it, and then that turned into Rocket Girl, which we also did a Kickstarter for. Image, there's a few people who have, there's a few people. I remember Five Ghosts was a book that was a Kickstarter first, but Image wasn't so high on, I don't know if their attitude has changed more than 10 years ago, but Image wasn't so hot on the idea of hey, it was a Kickstarter first, but they didn't hold it against us. I remember, a friend of a friend said, "Oh, it's like it is today." It was Eric Stevenson back there, and said, "Oh, send him the stuff and tell me you want to do it." And he would like reply in emails like, "This looks really good." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what does that mean? Is it are you interested? Like, can we publish with Image?" He goes, "This is the kind of book Image would love to publish." It was like a very long. We almost like didn't know, and it was for Halloween Eve, the first one said, "Well, this book's got to come out in October, so we need to know where we're publishing it." So, because nobody wants to read Halloween Eve in November, right? So,
it's time sensitive.
Yeah. So it was just like that, and it was, the numbers we did pretty decent numbers with Rocket Girl, and the trade sold very, very well, and it kept on selling for a good long time. It had legs to stay in the business. So it was, like consistently month after month as a backlist item also sold well, and. And that's like I said, it's not any kind of crazy story, but at the time, it was very hard to kind of keep up with, and that leads to Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, where you just kind of have one of those meetings where it's like, hey, we really like Rocket Girl, can you do that kind of thing at Marvel? And Rocket Girl wasn't a kid's book, but
no, not quite. There is a little bit of violence, but at the same time, it had the young protagonist.
It was more. To me, Rocket Girl was more of a looking back at those years than kind of trying to do something that would be for a teen or younger audience. But you're not going to tell Marvel no, and so that was Devil Dinosaur became Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and lucky for us, Moon Girl is the one that people tend to care about.
People really have responded well to that.
Yeah. So.
That's nice. Now you say you've got an 8-year-old daughter. Is with the cartoon on and stuff? Does she know that like Dad had a hand in bringing that to life? Is she aware? Is she interested?
Yeah. She's super excited, and I've always so I have 2 daughters. They're pretty far apart. At least I was very close to my brothers and my cousins. We were all kind of the same age, but my older daughter is now 15. for both of them, yeah, it's obviously it's super exciting to do. It's nice to. I remember when I was at DC Comics, which was in Midtown. I lived down in Greenwich Village. Sometimes I'd walk home, and it takes right through Times Square. I mean, you can go around it, but I always kind of liked going through Times Square just because it's all lit up and sure,
visually interesting.
And everything else. Yeah, walk there.
Especially
but I remember seeing like you would see like a Walking Dead marquee or or something huge like that, or 300 Frank Miller or whatever the Marvel movie was, and I always said, hey. When I was a little kid, you'd never think that you'd be walking through Times Square and seeing comic book content. And it was especially nice one day walking through. I was not at DC anymore, but I knew it would be there. So it wasn't quite an accident. But, to see Moon Girl up on a big marquee, it's
cool.
Really exciting stuff to do it. And, I always said I've been lucky enough to do Rocket Girl and other stuff that's creator owned. So with Moon Girl, it really was something you hope that it takes off and that other creators and writers and artists in comics, but also the cartoon people and whomever else. It's nice that it's become part of the Marvel universe. I like.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I like looking at the big Alex Ross poster and seeing Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur with the other, top 150 characters or whatever. It just kind of running out. Reminds me of that old Ed Hannigan giant Marvel universe poster.
Just such a positive.
Like it. Yeah, and I go. So I've been for a lot of years going to kids classes and doing stuff like that. If anyone ever asks, I tend to go and talk about comics. So yeah, they were super.
And I mean, I have to imagine that like doing those books is what put you on the radar for DuckTales,
Sure.
Or was it like, somebody like, what is it? Nate Cosby's the editor of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know him already or something like that? Or how did it happen?
I knew him a little bit. He was at Marvel. I think he was at Marvel. He used to work for Panicha, who was the editor on all the stuff I did at Marvel back then. But he was never he was the assistant, but he was never the assistant on any of my books. But and at one point he offered me Green Hornet. Ages ago for Dynamite, and I turned it down. So I knew him a little bit, but not too much. And he just called up and said, "Hey, you want to do? We're doing some Disney books. Are you interested?" And it's been a long time since Moon Girl, as a monthly ended, and I kind of miss being on the shelves every month, and I miss it keeps you honest as far as keeping up work and producing stuff for.
Absolutely.
And even though Moon Girl, I don't know the exact number, but certainly 80% of the readers or more were buying it in trade paperback. You know what I mean? So it's
super popular in that format.
And I'm sure to some extent that's going to be true with DuckTales and stuff like that. But still, to me, it's.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Is that so? You bring up something interesting. With that in mind, do you approach this going like, hey, I'm going to write for the monthly audience first and like sort of try to tell a complete story? Or are you going, no, like the monthly audience will find it and we should write for the trade with like longer stories? Like, what's the approach?
Yeah, it's really tough because if you're doing a monthly book, you should do it as a monthly book. But Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and I experienced this at, even up at Vertigo, when, there was a original graphic novel initiative that Jonathan Bankin and Joan Hilty were the editors kind of, but everyone who was at Vertigo at the time kind of worked on it a little bit. We did a Peter Bagg book, and we did Jeff Lemire's The Nobody, which he did before Sweet Tooth. And it's just so hard to do original graphic novels when you're inside the machine, the DC machine or the Marvel machine. So it's just the way that it is. So you almost don't have a choice. And so you say, okay, well, let's be honest with the 20 pages, but when I look back at Moon Girl now and I read it, it's like, well, every 20 pages, it's a chapter. You don't have anything. You don't really have a lot of room for big action where you can kind of let it spread out because you have to get that story done. That beginning, a middle, and end in every 20 pages. So obviously I think I did a good job of it, but it's much better creatively to have the flexibility. It's a long answer because it's kind of a little bit of both. You know what I mean?
That's fair. That's totally fair.
Right. For DuckTales, though, not 100% sure. The first 5 issues all go together.
Okay.
After that, there's at least one standalone issue. And are we going to do more stuff that's kind of read together as a trade, or single stories that are then collected? Kids tend to like the one big story though. That market.
Well, I think a lot of people do.
Yeah. So that being said, it's never like I'm saying, oh, I'll just stop here and then we'll put the end on it. You really do try to structure your stuff. But as a writer,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, as a writer, I've always been something of a formalist, right? So to me, you have a beginning and a middle and an end for the whole story. For each chapter, which is maybe what these 20 or 22 page single issues represent, that needs a beginning and a middle and end. But so does every scene, and so does in my mind, every page. So you can kind of fit it all in and pace it out, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, guys like Carl Barks and Don Rosa have done it in sort of single issues that are great, and then that like expand into these massive epics, these adventures. Before we sort of compare and contrast that stuff, I am curious, if you're working on this 24/7, do you constantly have the theme song going through your head, or are you able to tune it out at a certain point? Because that is one catchy song.
No, it's I was a kid when that was coming out, and I was young, but it's called That's Kind of Lame, that song. I shouldn't say that, but the cat's out of the bag on it. I've said it already. That especially the woohoo part, I always kind of cringed at because I was too young to think, it wasn't cool like G.I. Joe was cool, as silly as that sounds all these years later. But no, definitely. And as you mentioned Barks and Rosa, guys like you and me know that, you know what I mean, and know them and are kind of, and that's such a great history to be a part of. But again, when I'm picking up my daughter at the pickup line after school, it's everyone. Oh, you working on Ducktales? They all start singing the song. They all do. All around my age, give or take 5 or 10 years. It's a huge property. I mean, it's funny because I took it because of the history of Uncle Scrooge here and abroad and every place else. But
it's still so popular in Europe.
Yeah, but DuckTales, I think, is a property that people really, really remember and loved. And I think for the civilians, so to speak, that it's going to be, people see that on the shelf. They're going to say, oh, I remember that cartoon because it's based on the 1987 continuity. And because a lot of the 87 cartoon incorporated the Barks stuff,
it sure did.
I get to bring all that stuff in as opposed to the 2017, which was, a lot of superstar talent and a really well put together show. But this is a bit of a nostalgia trip for the 87 cartoon.
But like the more recent reboot like uses like Daisy and her nieces and Donald a lot more. So this will be more focused on Scrooge and Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
100%, yeah.
But anybody else from like Duckburg that you're free to use?
Yeah, well, just about anybody. They call it siloing at Disney, and they call it that other places too. So you really only can stick in it. So anybody who was in the cartoon is basically fair game, which means I don't get to use Donald Duck, right, and stuff like that. That's
I can understand why that would be considered a separate thing, but
interestingly,
he's not the main character of DuckTales.
Yeah, exactly. But interestingly, Darkwing, which Dynamite's been doing books with, more than one.
Okay.
Like I said, no, don't use don't use him because he's a separate character that we Darkwing Duck we do different things with. And I said, well, can they even be reading like Darkwing because he was a fictional character originally in the DuckTales cartoon, right? So it's that'd be cool. Like could they be watching a Darkwing Duck movie or reading Darkwing Duck comics? But right now it's like no, don't touch them. For the first few issues, very consciously keeping it with Scrooge, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. But it's kind of the first 5 issues all takes place in Duckburg because they're always asking Huey, Dewey, and Louie, the nephews, are always asking Scrooge, tell us a story or let's go on an adventure. And he says, no, there's adventures right outside your door. That's kind of the theme of it. So you get to see all the different locations of Duckburg. And it focuses on.
That sounds like a good level setting.
But it's not, in my mind, it's not DuckTales unless you have the foreign locales and the alien robots and everything else. So every issue has a flashback to Scrooge's younger day, and so for those we're bringing like Magica Dispel is in issue 2. The Beagle Boys are in an issue. Glomgold. So only the first 5, you get a lot of all the characters in this kind of flashback, and then for 6 we'll make up for it because it'll just be an extravaganza with everybody.
You know, it's funny. I didn't even think of this until you started describing this, but when guys like Barks and even Rosa were doing it, there's a little less access to the world around us. And now we're in such a shared environment where, you know, if I'm really curious about, you know, any obscure locale that you can think of, I could probably at least find a YouTube video on it. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that, like, to go to like these adventurous locations, will they still go to, you know, Alaska, you know, the Klondike, or would they? Do you want to go into like space and more supernatural type things?
Yeah. Well, like, you know, looking back at, and you know, I haven't slavishly gone back and watched every episode and took notes. 2 things surprised me, and they're exact opposite. So I don't know how I reconcile it in my brain, but it surprised me how little the ancillary characters are in it. Because I remember like Launchpad McQuack being in every episode, and he's not. You know, or you know, and all these other characters appear very rare. Like you hardly ever see Gizmo Duck or Gyro Gearloose or some of those other ones. It really is a story about Scrooge, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. But that being said, I couldn't imagine like all those, like, you know, supernatural or speculative or sci-fi stories in there too. Like they're doing time travel. They got ghosts. They got
they did.
Yeah. So you know, I'm not going to not do those kinds of stories because they're fun. So yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards maybe, you know, as because it's an ongoing series. You know, and for me personally, some people like if you get a big 5-part story, it's easier for them because they don't have to come up with a new idea every month. But I think I'm leaning towards maybe doing more kind of standalone issues. We'll see. But you know, we'll see how well the first arc does and everything else. But
some of my favorite stuff would be. Some of my favorite stuff when I go back and read the Rosa and Barks stories is that there can be these big adventures, but then they'll also have like 3-panel gags sort of things that could easily be in a newspaper. And you just do something funny that's like either a pratfall or like a pun or something. And I like that. It keeps it lively.
So Tommaso Ronda is the artist on it, and he's from a studio that does like tons and tons of Disney stuff, an Italian studio. They do it for that market media over there and everything else. So they're like experts at it. But those flashbacks I was talking about where you kind of get to see like, oh, like it's not necessarily the first time it met Magica Dispel, but one of the early times. All that stuff we're doing in the Barks 8-panel grid style. And, we go with a bit flatter colors. We, you know, use thought balloons and stuff like that a little bit more. So it's a
little bit of a throwback.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely noticeable. And I think it's cool. Hopefully people will like it.
I want it to be successful. I think that Scrooge and all the Duck characters are just fantastic characters in general. They're really good. I've got one quick question that somebody in the audience asked that I do think is a cool question. Do you get to create characters? I mean, I imagine you'd have to support create like villains and supporting characters. Are you allowed to create stuff like that?
Yeah, you know, it's the Disney machine. So if you can use a character that pre-exists, they'd rather you do that. If you do use new characters, you're not. It's very, you're not allowed to actually create, because by not allowed, it's not like, oh, it's like there's these rules or everything else. It's mostly actually Nate Cosby has to do it, right? But as it gets filtered through, it's what does Disney as a licensor want? And they say, well, don't create a new character and make them like the main bad guy or something. They don't want to have. Okay. I understand that you have to have supporting characters in these different things, but and there's certainly some of those in the first few issues that are important, but they don't want it to be like something that can that's going to affect that universe beyond the 22 pages that you're doing that month. Does that make any sense?
Because it absolutely does. Yeah. I was just curious, and that's a totally fair answer. Yeah. And you know what? Fortunately, probably not that big an issue, because if folks don't know, Scrooge McDuck was invented in 1947.
Yeah.
That means there's a lot of history to pull from. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm amazed that I get the notes from the Disney people, and I'm amazed that this isn't right. This is the second episode, the second issue that we're doing takes place in the local movie theater, and it's kind of like a riff on the Phantom of the Scrooge-orama Dome. And the Scrooge-orama Dome was really in the cartoons, and there was this monster movie marathon. And I think it's like Frankenquacker but it's supposed to be Quackenstein, and I wrote the wrong one. And like the Disney licensors, no, it's not. And I don't even remember which one it is now. It was no, it's not Frankenquacker, it's Quackenstein. And they're like correcting me on like, the guy that appeared on a TV screen for for not even 5 minutes, 15 seconds probably in a cartoon that's 35 years old. And they're on top of it.
So it lands real soon. We're past final order cutoff for issue 1, folks, right. But it comes out November 6th? Is
November 6th, yeah.
November 6th.
Yeah. So definitely get it. And I tend to think with the kids stuff, like I said, it'll live on as a trade paperback, but definitely let your comic shop know that you want one, so they can
no question,
they have copies available.
No question, because issue 2 of any comic series, folks, is like when orders will go down. But if you show interest right now, before you've even bought the first issue, that can definitely help. I think that Ducktales is a great property, and congrats on getting this job. I hope you have fun with it. It sounds like a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm in a lucky enough position where I'll only take a gig if I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it and give it my all. So
that's really nice to hear. Because we as readers want the person making it to be having fun and have some passion. So that's really, really cool. And it's Dynamite has been doing very, very well with its Disney stuff right now. So you're in good company.
Yeah,
I'm sure it all helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Anything else we should keep our eye out for right now for you, Brandon? Like social media or anything?
No, all stuff, all focusing on Ducktales. It's like I said, it's important to me and important to the guys doing it. I will say though, if you want a bit of a teaser, next year is the 10th anniversary of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. So
okay,
there might be a little something for that coming out.
I always appreciate a good tease. In fact, I'll definitely give you the double salute.
Very good.
Yeah. You've earned it.
I can't go past the double salute. There's nowhere further to go, right?
That's as high as it can go until I take enough yoga classes that I can get up to the quadruple salute.
Very good. But, you gotta get the feet up there. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
that'll take me a while.
Yeah,
because I'm only getting older. Yeah. So you're gonna go to New York Comic Con this weekend?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm getting a bit run down. I don't have a booth. I'm not an artist alley or anything like that. But I should be around, and it's definitely, if you're in the New York area all the time, there'll be some signings and stuff for Ducktales.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
I hope you have a great time. I hope you feel better. I appreciate you giving us some of your time tonight, even though you're not necessarily feeling 100%.
Like I said, I feel much better doing this. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you, Chris.
Awesome. Nice talking to you, Brandon. Take care.
Good. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
There we go. I love Scrooge McDuck specifically. Anything to do with Scrooge. I wasn't as into him when I was a kid, actually, because I was a little too old and I missed DuckTales when it first came out. But I found the comics and I love those characters. They're great. They're really, really cool. Thanks, everybody, for watching that. Very kind of you. And let's move forward into the news. I think that we should do that, right? I think so. Share screen. We've got a lot of news actually this week, so I think this is going to be a really fun piece. Let me get my headphone out so that I can not hear any weird sort of echo or anything. And then we've got a few banger comics to talk about this week. Hey, I just realized I don't think I saw my sister in the chat room. Oh my goodness, how can she not support me like that? Hey, very nice, very nice. The Barks ones are the ones I'm most familiar with personally, but even then, there's so many that I haven't read them all or anything. Really good stuff. This is going to be fun to talk about for the news. Let's start off with this such an unlikely story. I call it cosplayer, but this actor was in Joker fan films and has now beaten the Joker at the box office. Hey, you are here. Thanks, Jeannie. I appreciate the support. You're awesome. You're really cool. Oh, that's so nice to hear, actually. Carl Barks seems really charming. Sorry I missed you, Jeansy. All right. So, what am I talking about? Well, actor David Howard Thornton, He played Joker in a couple things online. There was some Nightwing fan films. Nightwing Escalation had a couple seasons. He did a Joker Killing Joke monologue. He played a really interesting Joker, but that's kind of cosplay if you're not actually hired by DC. Well, he then went on to play Art the Clown in these low-budget horror movies, the Terrifier series. Terrifier 3 just came out this past weekend, and it actually made more at the box office than Joker 2, a big studio film. Just wild to think about. Terrifier 3, and it's not going to be a movie for everybody, but it is an interesting story. Terrifier 3 was made on a $2 million budget, and it used an additional $500,000 for marketing purposes, advertising and such. That's hardly anything these days. And it earned $18.3 million at the box office. Even if they only had this 1 week, that's a massive return on investment. So, that's just good business. I can't speak to the quality of the movie. I haven't seen these. I like horror. At some point, I probably will catch them. Haven't yet. But I still find that interesting that this guy that in 2016 was playing the Joker on YouTube just made a movie that beat the actual Joker movie. Joker 2, unfortunately for it, has broken some records. It's if it's not the lowest opening for a superhero movie, it's the second lowest, at least in the modern day. It definitely suffered the largest drop for a comic book movie from week 1 to week 2, 81%. 81%. It earned only $7 million in week 2. Guys, this movie cost about $200 million to make, and probably somewhere in the vicinity of $150 million to advertise. So it made a lot less than Morbius, and it took a bigger drop from week 1 to week 2 than Morbius. It did worse than The Marvels, which didn't do well, although that was right as the pandemic was sort of ending and people weren't really going to movie theaters. I'm making excuses for it, but I think that's fair. Joker 2 did really bad. Pretty sure Madam Web will, at the end of its run, have made more money, and I think it opened higher than Joker 2 did. It's just a story, Warner Brothers, if you don't know, is losing a lot of money, and that their new sort of head of Discovery / Warner Brothers, David Zaslav, has been canceling lots and lots of stuff, but it's because the entertainment side of it has been hemorrhaging money the last several quarters. Joker was a massive financial success, and so in turn, they gave a massive amount of creative control and a massive amount of money to everybody making the second one with no oversight, and it needed some. It needed some. So anyway, the guy that cosplayed Joker just made a clown horror movie that literally beat a big tentpole movie, and I just wanted to mention it. It's just bonkers. Just bonkers. Let's talk about something happier for DC. I'm not here to beat up on anyone. Let's see. Hello. Yes, I heard that Art the Clown has appeared in a couple things aside from his movies. So yeah, nobody saw it, but everyone is dunking on it. That's the weirdest part. I did see it, and I did dunk on it. I gotta say, I don't think Joker 2 is a very good film. I really don't. Hey, Craig. Always nice to have folks that I know in here. Thank you. Let's go into something positive, though, because DC does have a lot of cool stuff. They're Absolute books. There's a lot of initial interest. So this comes from Bleeding Cool. They heard that Absolute Wonder Woman got 150,000 copies pre-ordered for the first print, and Absolute Superman, a little above that, 180,000. This is after Absolute Batman just came out this past week. DC announced this week they're already going to a third printing. Instantly sold out of the first printing, went straight back to second print. All their copies got ordered. They're already going to do a third print. That's going to come out the third printing November 27th. Total orders for issue 1 already somewhere around 250,000, if not more. There might be more. We're sort of waiting to hear about it. I liked it quite a bit. And a lot of these new reboots do get a lot of initial interest. But this is really good numbers. These are really, really strong. And, I feel like a strong industry in any area is good for everybody, ultimately. If more people are going into a store to pick up Absolute Batman, maybe while they're there, they're also like, The Ultimates looks interesting, or, Terminator, who knows? That's what I think. I think that it helps everybody, ultimately, when a book does this well. So Absolute Wonder Woman #1, that's by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman. That comes out October 23rd, very soon. And then Absolute Superman is by Jason Aaron and Rafa Sandoval, and that comes out November 6th. I think that these numbers don't really tell us anything too much other than the overall popularity of each character. These are 3 of the more popular characters DC has. Batman is the most popular, then Superman, then Wonder Woman. The pre-orders are from shops, but when they're talking about going into a second or third printing, that means the stores have basically sold enough that they want more copies. So when we're talking about these, we're talking about pre-orders, which is what the shops place based on what they estimate reader interest is. But it seems like the interest may be even higher than what they anticipate, which is strong to begin with. Good question. I personally think that this is some of the best casting I've seen in a while, but Lanterns has cast its actor for Jon Stewart. Specifically, Aaron Pierre, who, if you haven't seen him, is in a great movie on Netflix called Rebel Ridge. It's by Jeremy Saulnier. He makes good movies. Anyway, he's been cast as Jon Stewart in the HBO Lanterns series opposite Kyle Chandler's Hal Jordan. If you haven't seen this guy before, he has like just the clearest eyes, like just really, really memorable eyes. And I honestly think he just has the look. Like sometimes you can get somebody close enough to the character and then their performance carries it through. But to me, I looked at this guy and when they said that he was cast, I go, oh my God. Yeah, he does look like how Jon Stewart has been drawn for years and years. Just amazing. So Pierre replied to Deadline reporting on this news saying, quote, tremendously honored and abundantly grateful, a dream come true. Thank you for all the love and beautiful energy. Thank you for welcoming me to DC. Let's work. He's a pretty intense guy in Rebel Ridge, and Jon Stewart does have that military background. But yeah, I like this casting personally. I think it looks good. If you don't know, Pierre actually has played DC stuff before. Probably not something everybody saw, but he played the character Dev M. That was an evil Kryptonian on the show Krypton. That's when DC was just making nothing but like Superman and Batman prequels that didn't have Batman or Superman in them. That was an era, huh? Like Smallville and Gotham and Pennyworth, Krypton. It was, let's just do everything except the superhero that everybody wants to see. But yeah, I hope it's good. You know, HBO has usually pretty good quality control and a good budget. So I'm hopeful. Oh, man, thank you for this, Craig. Always bringing us the goods, always inspiring and keeps the tank full. Dude, thank you so much. That's really helpful because I am going to New York Comic Con this weekend, and I don't really have a lot in terms of spending money, so I'll just sort of consider this like money that I could, you know, use in Artist Alley to pick something up. Thank you very much. Really, really kind of you. I like that. What's that? The Penguin is pretty darn good. I'm behind on that. They should have done a show on Bibbo's bar. And then I'm like, well, that actually does sound like it could be pretty interesting. But anyway. Let's see. What else do we have for news? Looks like there's going to be a AAA game set in the DC universe. And I think everybody generally knows what that is. But if you don't, it just means a really big budget game, okay? That's all it means. Big budget, big studio. Warner Brothers Games Montreal, a division of Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, seems to be working on a new AAA game set in the DC universe, and that's based on this. The studio has opened a job position for a senior producer to work on, quote, AAA titles set in the DC Comics universe. So it requires overseeing all phases of development of a single project, quote, from the concept phase through its release. No word on specifically what title, but the job suggests it's for a brand new game. Oh, dude, that's kind. Please don't overextend yourself, but I really, really appreciate that. That'll just make my day that much more memorable, and in the back of my mind, I'll be thinking, oh, that was Craig. Thank you. Let's see. The studio, WB Games Montreal, they've previously made Batman Arkham Origins. I like that game all right. They also made Gotham Knights. I didn't get that one, so I don't know how good that was. If the pattern holds, then maybe it's another Batman-themed game, but I don't know. Yeah, because that was by a different studio. Like, was it Rocksteady that made the other Arkham games? But I actually thought that Arkham Origins was pretty darn good. Jeff Lemire is about to launch JSA. It's part of All In, new creative team. And he says that a crossover with Justice League is inevitable. Let's see what he has to say specifically. So he talked about how this book is launching in November, talked with Newsarama. So there's some quotes out there. I've got one of them that I thought was relevant. He mentioned that it's also important to keep JSA, to sort of keep it different from everything else. Keep it multi-generational, because you've got like the older heroes, like, you know, the original Flash and Green Lantern, and then sort of some of the heroes that are more in the middle, you might say. Maybe like a Wildcat isn't necessarily portrayed as quite as old. And then you've got like the new generation, like a new Dr. Midnight, things like that. So this is a quote from Jeff Lemire. For me, DC is always at its best when both the Justice Society and the Justice League are strong at the same time. And I know that Mark Waid, and I know what Mark Waid is doing with Justice League Unlimited. And it's going to be very cool and very different from what I'm doing. So I think there's definitely room for both teams, and I think that makes the DC universe really rich. Also, he and I have obviously talked about the inevitable Justice Society, Justice League team up, because again, that's such a DC touchstone from the past that if we didn't try to do something really cool together too, it would sort of be neglecting the readers, I think. And I agree. The whole name Crisis comes from the fact that the DC used to do annual crossovers between Justice Society of America and Justice League of America. They just meet each other once a year for a simple crossover story. Just great stuff. Oh, wow. Thank you, Dumpster Daddy. What a name. Thank you. They should have cast Jon Stewart from The Daily Show as Jon Stewart. Also, have more spending money. Arigatou gozaimasu. No, that's really, really cool. Thank you. Thank you so much for the kindness. Looks like my weekend is improving. Oh, what's my hair doing? I don't know. How do you like my orange background? I'm trying to give this a little bit of a Halloween vibe. Trying. Thank you, Dumpster Daddy. Best Monday night ever. Doing what I can. I knew what I was saying. I'm guessing Lemire won't be using any of Jeff Johns' new characters. I don't think so. You know, that book that Jeff Johns folks was writing, JSA, and it just some of the biggest delays in comics. And I think DC is ready to just sort of close that door and move forward and almost ignore it. Maybe someday they'll look back fondly, but not right now. Right now, they just need to move forward. Wish Upon. I never saw that one, so noted. Noted. So why did the Uzumaki anime have quality issues? Somebody told me about this in the chat last week, and I had to look into it. So first of all, viewers were surprised when the animation changed drastically from episode 1 to episode 2 of Uzumaki, an adaptation of a pretty famous manga by Junji Ito. Fans were wondering aloud on social media what happened here, because it just doesn't look the same anymore. Well, one of the show's executive producers, Jason DeMarco, commented on it on Blue Sky, although he did delete the posts. But I've got him. Everything on the internet is forever. Yeah, it's pretty disappointing. What? I'm not going to spoil anything about the show, but I am going to show you a couple very brief clips between episodes 1 and 2 so that you can see what I'm talking about. There we go. This is episode 1. A lot of motion. And then this is episode 2. What? Here's episode 1 and 2 side by side, both with a scene of this weird kid coming into a classroom. And as you can see on the left, there's a lot more detail, a lot more shading, a lot more fluidity. Pretty weird, right? Pretty weird. So, oh, I didn't mean to play it again. Let me just bring up Jason DeMarco's comments. It's fine. We knew this would happen, talking about the backlash. I can't talk about what went down, but we were screwed over. And the options were A, not finish and air nothing and call it a loss. B, just finish and air episode 1 and leave it incomplete. Or C, run all 4, warts and all. Out of respect for the hard work, we chose C. After waiting so long, it makes sense people would be mad. They announced this a long time ago. Unfortunately, I can't tell them who to blame it on, but someone is definitely at fault here, and we all just had to do our best when things imploded. Maybe others would have made different choices. We did the best we could with what we had. But again, a lot of people worked very hard on this show, and I didn't think the actions of just 1 or 2 people should be the reason it never saw the light of day. Maybe that's the wrong choice. I truly don't know. But those people have a right to be annoyed and disappointed. I'm glad you are digging it. It's a good story. It's got the same, writers. It's got the same voice actors. But the animation definitely does change. I can't confirm this, but I heard that, and you can see that it's different directors and different animation studios if you just look at the credits, okay? I heard that the original director was supposed to do the whole show, but he basically blew the whole budget on episode 1. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that he literally hired mocap actors, motion capture, to then have that turned into a 3D animation that animators would essentially rotoscope or draw over to really get that correct gesture and movement. Looking at episode 1, that seems like it could be possible. I don't know for a fact. It seems possible. It does seem like there was a lot of drama behind the scenes. Episode 3 was the best so far. It's not really that big of a deal. That's encouraging to hear. I like the story. I was surprised. I sincerely was, because I do think that episode 2 looks drastically different than episode 1. But I wasn't that upset because I always prefer... Well, I can't always say that I always prefer the manga to an anime, but what I tend to prefer is whatever I see first. And that because it makes the biggest impact. It was totally mocapped. It does have that kind of a vibe to it. I'll just play it one more time. Let's see. Do you think that this was mocapped for this first scene? I think that that's possible. Whereas that's just, pretty basic animation. A lot of stillness in episode 2. A lot of stillness. Not that everybody's moving here, but there's a little bit more. It is what it is. Yeah, I hope someday there's a good animated version of Berserk. I just love Berserk. Crazy story. As long as I'm talking about manga stuff, apparently Oshi no Ko is about to wrap up. Little surprise, just because it hasn't been going that long and it's very popular. This past Wednesday, the Oshi no Ko manga announced on Twitter that it would wrap up in just 4 more chapters, 4 weekly chapters. The final one will come out November 14th. It's written by Eika Akasaka and drawn by Mego Yokayari. The story follows siblings Aqua and Ruby as they both pursue their dreams to become entertainers and also look for their mother's killer. They're also the reincarnated souls of fans of their also entertainer mother. She was like a pop idol. The manga started in April of 2020. That's so, just 4 years, and it has over 18 million copies printed. Pretty damn popular. Pretty damn popular. Yeah, I was just surprised that it was wrapping so soon, but better to wrap on time than to overextend your welcome. And I also think that sometimes something like One Piece skews our perceptions on how long something is supposed to last, because that's definitely an outlier. There's a lot of other well-known manga that didn't go anywhere close to that long. 4 to 5 years is like, considering it's the same creative team, that's a pretty damn good run to tell one big story. There are a few exceptions, like even longer running things. Golgo 13 comes to mind. That's a really long running one. Especially with the original creator. He's gone now, but still. Yeah. It sounds like a ridiculous premise, but it works so well. I know I've got several friends that really love it. It's excellent, but if they've told the story they want to tell, better to end it here. Agreed. And last sort of manga-related thing I'll have is that this upcoming TMNT Naruto crossover got some pretty big pre-orders. AIPT reported that the upcoming TMNT Naruto comics first issue received more than 100,000 orders from retailers. Wow. Very, very nice. That's a lot. Issue 1 is set to debut in comic shops on November 20th, not too far away. It's written by Caleb Gailner and art by Henry Prasetya, but the comics also feature gorgeous covers by Jorge Jimenez. Really, really cool. Oh yeah, Detective Conan has been running a really long time. JoJo, probably not quite as long, and it also like sort of restarts with like new storylines, but within like a shared, not even completely shared universe, but a shared multiverse almost. But it's all by the same guy, so yeah, that's definitely one that's been going a long time. Yeah. Anyway, like I say, I'm always excited to see things do well. Is Kishimoto the guy that does Naruto? Because basically this is just licensed through Viz. The original creator of Naruto isn't working on it. He just, approved the licensing of it. So I don't know how much that matters to different people. It was never going to be officially in that continuity, and it's not like Eastman and Laird are doing the Ninja Turtles part either. But, it's from the respective publishers. Well, that's a good point, too. Like, who knows what his fee would have even been to do something as simple as a cover. I would assume quite a lot. IDW, this is sort of connected to Turtles. IDW hired some execs and artists. Some cool stuff here. Yeah, I'm very proud of my my friend Jim Jimmy Jams has cracked $50,000 on his Kickstarter for Savage Street Vigilante. Very kind of you to bring that up, Dave. Appreciate that, and just really happy for him. Last week he unlocked a new cover by Scotty Young. Really strong Kickstarter, but I supported it. I hope you guys will consider doing so as well. I've got a few Kickstarter things to talk about tonight. So on Wednesday, IDW announced it hired Bobby Curnow as its new editor-in-chief. They also announced that they hired Andy Curry as the senior editor of the Ninja Turtles line. Look at that. Curnow had previously worked at IDW for a really long time, 2010 to 2022. He started as like an assistant editor, senior editor, etc. Went on to start his own company, but IDW has lured him back. Curry has a big history in comics too. He was an editor at DC for like 5 years. He was writer at Comics Alliance. Really, really cool. Oh, nice. I'm glad that that's going well. Nice. Thank you, Larry. I apologize if you mentioned this already, but are you coming to New York Comic Con again this year? I'll be there Thursday and Sunday. I'm threading that needle, Larry. I'm going to be there Saturday. I'm only there Saturday. So, sorry that we don't line up. I hope you have a fantastic time. 2 days sounds awesome. I'm going with my wife, and she and my friend Evan from college who lives in New York, like we always go to the convention, but it's also like, it's fun for everyone. We all like comics. We all like the spectacle, but also like I don't want to say have to, but I do say hello to a lot of people, a lot of friends, a lot of pros. There's some networking involved. It's fun, but it's a little work. And doing that to making the other people like do that for more than one day seems like a lot. And I want to do other things with them too. Thank you for the super chat, though, Larry. That means a lot to me. That'll make my weekend at New York a lot better. Did I participate in the TMNT documentary that ended today on Kickstarter? I don't think so. I did participate in a Ninja Turtles 40th anniversary documentary, but it's I believe being done as a podcast, and I don't think it's been released yet. But I did do that like a couple months ago and signed the release. When it comes out, I'll let you guys know. I was like, me? I was like, are you already talking to all the people like Eastman and Laird and the various other people that have worked on it over the years? And they're like, yes, like they're all in. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, if you need somebody for like a little bit of flavor about comics history, I guess I can do my best. I didn't work on the book, but if I can, sure. No, probably not. I think Sonic is doing well for them and that they've got the license for a while. So what else did I have to say here? Oh, yeah. IDW announced today that Juan Ferreira is going to illustrate issue 6 of Ninja Turtles, doing the covers for issues 6 and 7. And I thought this was interesting. He's doing all the colors himself, too, because it's sort of got a painted style here. Really cool, unique artwork, and doing both like the penciling, inking, and the colors. So I saw a few preview pages. I think it looks really, really good. It's nice to see IDW hiring so many top artists to work on Ninja Turtles right now. Very, very cool. Yeah, number 6 of the current relaunch. I say relaunch. I mean, it didn't change any continuity. It's just, a fresh set of creators. So, I haven't said that in a while. New York Comic Con is going to be live streaming a bunch of their panels for free. So even if you folks aren't going to New York, if you're curious, you can like literally get the same news as people going there get at the exact same time. So, Reed Pop, they run New York Comic Con as well as some other conventions like my local one, Emerald City Comic Con. They announced a special partnership with Paragon Creative Agency, and that will serve as the official live stream partner for New York Comic Con 2024. Specifically, the deal will include live coverage from Comic Book Resources, CBR, alongside fellow Valnet publications Collider and Screen Rant. All three of those are owned by the same company. So if you go to any of those three, they should have a live stream feed for these. All of the main stage panels and their Empire stage panels, those are the biggest rooms, will be available to live stream for free. So thought I'd put it out there so that, you know, if you were like at home and you were like, I sort of want to feel like, you know, I'm watching the same stuff, like feel like you're there, you can for free. I kind of like that. And I'll say you something else. I think this makes a lot of sense. Panels used to be a tremendous draw because it might have been your only chance to see certain creators and stuff. These days, you know, that news, when it breaks, there are reporters there in the audience, and it ends up online almost instantaneously. Because there's no time period where that news is like, you know, exclusive to the people that are going to the panel. I feel like you might as well share it with the people that didn't get to the convention. It's still a draw, but it's never been my favorite thing to go to because I don't usually like to stay in a line when I'm at a convention. I like to talk to people in Artist Alley and exhibitors and, you know, vendors and buy stuff, talk to my friends. And then you get the news right away. So I think that this is nice. NYC is a long way for you. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a really good idea. I see what you did there, Mike. In the age of gaming convention, live streaming, everything, this is a must. I think it's just, yeah, it's time to do it. Thank you for the heads up. CXC and SPX share their streams after recording, but it's nice to see NYCC stream stuff live. It's a pretty big place. Where is it? New York Comic Con is at the Javits Center for 4 days, this Thursday through Sunday this week. I'll be there Saturday. I go every year. Nice call back, Wally. For those who don't know, let me recap a quick story, just in case you don't know what Wally's referring to. So, I don't know if it was 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. Where is the live stream? It's on CBR, Collider, Screen Rant. They'll all have links on their sites to wherever they're streaming it. So I think it was 2 years ago at Emerald City Comic Con. Daniel Warren Johnson, one of my favorite artists, was going to take a very limited amount of sketch requests, first come, first serve on day one. So that's something I really wanted to do. So I actually did get to the convention and line up before the doors opened. And I thought that I knew the Emerald City, or I should say Seattle Convention Center layout. So everybody's rushing across the hall, and I jumped into a stairwell that I thought went straight up to like the sign. Well, it did. You know, it went up to the level that Daniel was on. It's a multi-level convention center. It's not laid out great. It's an old one. We've got a new one now. You can't get out of the door once you're inside. So I locked myself in the stairwell while the precious minutes ticked away, and I had to call the actual convention center, and they sent an employee with keys to get me out. Oh my God. I was so frustrated. You know what? I got to Daniel like not too late, but like later than I meant to, and he'd already filled up his slots, and I just told him the story. I didn't expect anything. And you know what? He had sympathy on me, and he still did a sketch for me, a Berserk sketch. So it all worked out. I got a stupid story out of it. I got a good story out of it. How well did I stare? It wasn't just embarrassing. It was like frustrating because there's no air conditioning or air ventilation really in the stairwell. So I was instantly just sweltering. I was like, ugh. It was brutal. Oh yeah, I was pounding on the door and no one would answer. So I had to call. Thank God I had the phone reception. Otherwise, all I could have done was just knock all day until somebody eventually would have taken mercy on me. Pretty sure that they will be streaming on YouTube. I don't know if CBR or Collider or Screen Rant has a YouTube channel, but if any of them do, I'm sure that they will be streaming on that. I'm sure they will. Yeah. I mean, he was taking, like, they were commissions. So yeah, I did pay for it. His time is very in demand, so I was totally cool with that. I knew it going in. This is kind of a nice story. I'm excited to talk about this. Also in New York, Desert Island Comics. And they are actually seen here. This is actually what their storefront looks like. They've had a campaign to stay open, and it's gone well. So specifically, I'm talking about a Brooklyn comic shop. It's called Desert Island Comics. It's been a long-time destination in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. They took over a bakery, and they left the whole bakery signage up and just took over the store. Anyway, recently, their landlord was told them that he'd be doubling their rent because he got an offer from a local liquor store. The liquor store basically was on a corner and had been there for ages and ages, you know, a business that's part of the community. And that building was sold to get turned into like condos or apartments, one of those. And so this liquor store is going to need a new location. And they offered double what the comic shop was paying. So the landlord was just like, okay, so tell you what, if you want to stay, you got to pay double. Ouch, that's a lot. The owner, Gabe Fowler, went to GoFundMe. And he was like, look, I want to raise $79,200. What that would do would be allow me to sign a 3-year lease for $201,600. If basically I can get, like, you know, the funds for 1 year, I think I can like do the rest. But like that's what it will cost now. That means that like the rent on this sort of small shop is almost $6,000 a month. It's pretty high. Anyway, the community stepped up and it got filled, and it got filled fast. This will allow Desert Island Comics to renew their lease, but just to be clear, Fowler told Comics Beat he's also looking into alternate locations as well, because he really would prefer to have a landlord that's supportive and they have a good relationship together. But there you go. There's the campaign as of today. The goal was $79,200, and within about a week, they got to $94,738. It is still open. If you want to like help this, you know, if you're in the community, of course, I think it's a good idea to support a business like this. But, you know, maybe you just want to support a comic shop that has a long history. I don't know. Just thought I'd pass that on. Let's go, Mets. I hope to see you Saturday. Thank you for the super chat, Steve. I hope I see you as well. And looks like you've got a shot at a Subway series. I don't keep 100% up to date on MLB, but it looks like the Yankees and Mets are both doing pretty well, and there's a chance for a Subway series. Am I wrong? Let me know if I've got that wrong. Exactly. It is a huge jump. Huge jump. It is a little sad. I mean, to be fair, the liquor store apparently has a lot of history in this neighborhood too, but yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer. It's a bummer that, you know, you have to sort of turn to crowdfunding to potentially stay in business, but it's also nice to think that like some people are like, you know what, small donation on my behalf, along with a bunch of other people, and I get to keep like, you know, a nice business in my neighborhood. It's a nice community sort of thing that I wish it didn't have to happen when people get like, you know, healthcare bills and like rent problems, but it is kind of a beautiful thing. If I've got time, I might. My friend does live in Brooklyn now. Tiny Onion had some really cool announcements just before New York Comic Con. Let me acknowledge this too. Wow, thank you. This is going to be a good weekend for me. Appreciate the support. Hope all is well. Remember, we the comic troopers love and appreciate all that you do. That's really all I have to say. Thank you. I'm doing everything I can to finish a Comic Tropes tonight. I'll just have to stay up till whether it's 2 in the morning or something. I just got to get it done for you guys because then I've got to work for the next 2 days before I fly out. So I do have a Comic Tropes episode recorded that's about a third edited. I just have to finish it all today. So I'm trying. All right. James Tynion's creative studio, Tiny Onion, announced some of their New York Comic Con plans on Substack. They're going to have a print newspaper. You can see a cover of it here. They're going to have an Artists in Residence program. Very cool. The first enrollees in the Artists in Residence program are going to be colorist Jordi Belair and letterer Aditya Bidikar. The goal is to give them both guaranteed work and thereby allow them to develop their skills, and they're going to help them pitch comics to Image for publication to develop their own ideas for a comic. Great program, really helping the artist get ahead. And then finally, the newspaper that they're going to release, it's going to cover comic books, and it's only going to cost $1. Love it. Love it. Very fun. Thank you. Mental health trumps all. Well, it's nice of you to say take your time, and I wish I could, but I took a sponsorship on this, so I really need to fulfill my obligations. To be fair, maybe I overcommit, but I need to get it out. I need to get it out. And I think it'll be fun. I want people to see it. Soule and Browne reteaming. I'm there for it. Really liked their last book. Who am I talking about? Charles Soule and Ryan Browne. They had a successful book this past year. I recommended it a lot. I thought it was cool. 8 Billion Genies. Really interesting supernatural book. Really cool idea. I was about to describe it, but I don't want to spoil it. Anyway, their next comic will have a limited number of copies available at New York Comic Con ahead of the regular launch. Soule explains the concept of the Lucky Devils. The Lucky Devils quick pitch. It's about two people who begin working with the devils on their shoulder in an attempt to improve their crappy lives. At first, the devils help out in ways that are technically immoral, but are pretty inconsequential in the grand scheme. But as the humans begin to become more powerful and influential, and they realize how much good they can do for the world if they just keep things going and let the devils continue to do what they're doing, well, things go to hell in a handbasket. Okay. So they're going to be 1,000 copies for sale at New York Comic Con, plus an additional 500 copies that have a foil cover. And then Soule will sell some copies on his website here, charlessoule.com/store. Yep, I was going to mention that, and I guess I forgot. You're right, Curse Words, another good book they did together. It is true that, the websites do news, but I think that, in order to keep those clicks coming in, they also have to do a lot of just sort of ranked lists and stuff. I see things like that, or just links to auctions and stuff. And I'm just sort of that's not really necessarily news. I wish there was a dedicated place for comics news. That's some of why I do this. There's not as many places now. Oh, that's cool to hear. Barfly is worth checking out. Noted. I think that that's exactly what this is. All right. Speaking of Image Comics, Ice Cream Man number 43 has announced its lineup, and it's a murderer's row of talent. We'll put it that way. So, Image has released details on why they're listing so many artists and writers with ice cream behind them. They've been posting this stuff on social media. We've all assumed it's for Ice Cream Man, but didn't know exactly what. Well, now we know. Ice Cream Man issue 43 will be an anthology, specifically an anthology of one-page horror stories. One-page horror stories. Aw, thank you, Tim, for all your enjoyment your tropes have given. Have a cup of coffee. That is definitely the price of a cup of New York coffee. Thank you. Thank you. It's not a huge mystery, but now we've got the whole talent, and we didn't know that they were doing one page. We thought that maybe it was a big anthology or something like that. It's a regular monthly issue. Listen to this. Guest writers and artists will include, well, you can see it right here, Grant Morrison, Patton Oswalt, Zoe Thorogood, Jeff Johns, Jeff Lemire, Kelly Sue DeConnick, Matt Fraction, I don't know good old Neon, sorry, Dennis Camp, and Frank Barbieri. Wow, that's a lot of cool talent. Because each issue has always basically told a full story in just one issue, there's an ongoing sort of broader narrative, but it always sort of tells one creepy story in the issue. The creators wanted to push that and deliver a bunch of stories in just a single issue. So that's their idea. One-page horror stories. That's a challenge. As somebody that's written for comics, that's a small amount of real estate to tell a story. That's a small amount. Probably too busy. Probably too busy. Due to the recent storm that hit North Carolina, I missed the Promote Your Own Comics. Will you be doing another live stream? Eventually, once I can carve out some time. It'll probably be a month, but yeah. Sorry. The thing that they're sitting on there, we call it a seesaw. I've never heard it called anything else. Yeah, we call it a seesaw. Oh, this book hits shelves January 15th. Not too far away, really. Oh, that's right. I did hear Teeter Totter. I forgot about that. Okay, here's one I did not have on my bingo card. And if you guys did, go play the lottery because you have magical powers. Mego. We know Mego dolls. I hope if you know comics, you're familiar with Mego figures. They were very popular in the 70s, I would say. Well, they're going to produce some based on comic book heroes, but we're talking about the Atlas comics. We're not talking about Atlas as in pre-Marvel, the same company was called Atlas. No. We're talking about Atlas, Martin Goodman's second company after Marvel, meant to tank Marvel when he was bitter and angry at Marvel. So Mego has announced a partnership with the 1970s Atlas Comics brand and Walmart to produce toys based on the Atlas superheroes. Just so you know, these were comics that only lasted 2 to 3 issues. There might have been 1 or 2 of their magazines that went to 4 issues, but I think just about everything was 3 issues. At the same time, they did get like some great talent. They got like Steve Ditko. They got Howard Chaykin. They got Larry Lieber. You know, they got Larry Hama. They got some good talent, but it just didn't last long. So anyway, the posable 8-inch dolls will have one hero revealed each day at New York Comic Con at the Walmart booth. Apparently Walmart has a booth at New York Comic Con. Who knew? And Walmart will give away 100 of each of them. There's a part of me that would kind of like an Atlas superhero Mego doll, if I'm being honest. It's a really weird piece of history. I made an episode about it over on Comic Tropes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I hope you'll consider watching that. Lomax, Cheetah Man, I think was one, or something like that. Who else did they have? I'm trying to think all of a sudden. I should have looked it up. I forget some of the titles. If I saw them, I'd remember instantly. It just amuses me to see like this brand back in the spotlight. The figures will also include a reprint of their first comic appearance. Yeah, Devilina. Sean, nice to see you. Devilina might have been one that lasted 4 issues, and I think that they're trying to make a movie of that right now. Like, it's in development. It's not like being filmed, but I'm pretty sure that a Devilina movie is being developed. Not a lot of story to base these guys on. It's more just like you get the concept and a little bit of an adventure. There's not a lot of story to any of these characters, but they were fun. It was basically the what I heard or read was that so Martin Goodman ran Marvel Comics, okay, and he sold it to I want to say Cadence Industries. I think that's right. Anyway, he sold the company at a certain point, and he stayed on as some sort of executive, and I think he thought that his son would someday get appointed the president position. And when he realized that that wasn't going to happen, he went and started his own new company, Atlas, and took a bunch of the Marvel talent with him because he just paid them a lot. And it was like designed to let Chip have his own comic company. But unfortunately, there just wasn't enough creative cohesion there. Tiger Man, thank you. Tiger Man, that's what I was thinking of. You guys are good. The Tarantula was your favorite. Demon Hunter, yep. So it's a fun piece of history. And honestly, if you are the kind of person that likes to hunt back issues, well, first of all, I'll say, like, you should probably watch West Coast Avengers show because he does claim sales of all sorts of major and minor keys. But it would be really fun to collect because, you know, there's about like maybe 12 to 20 titles and they have no more than 3 issues. So it's doable, but it will take a little bit of time and it could be something fun to search for. Yeah, Sean's been in the chat before. I agree. He's incredibly talented. Yeah, Wolf the Barbarian looked cool. The one funny thing, too, about these comics is a lot of them, like issue 3, they changed the talent on it or the direction. So they're not very consistent either. It was like they panicked really fast. I'm not asking for free stuff. I never would. There might have been. Oh, there was like, yeah. Oh, shoot. What was that? Anyway. Weird little bit of history. Weird little bit of history. Oh, these will also go on sale on Walmart.com in December. If you're like, hey, I'm not at the comic convention. How am I going to get my Atlas superhero Mego doll? Well, maybe you can. Here's just a quick little leak for something I thought looked cool. A Lego X-Mansion is apparently the next big set. Yeah. Marvel's next big set. They've done the Daily Bugle. They've done, what else was like a really big set? Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum. I guess it was reasonably big when they did like the Statue of Liberty head from Spider-Man 3. So every once in a while they do really big Marvel sets, more aimed at the collector market. But they usually have a lot of fun references and are usually cool build, fun build. Didn't I say the Daily Bugle? I thought I did. Sorry. Why is Gambit flying? I know. I can't explain that one. I guess Rogue threw him. Rogue's down here. She tossed Remy up in the air to do something heroic. It's going to be 3,093 pieces. Decent size. Retailing for $329.99 US. That's right on for a... yeah, that makes sense. Like, basically, with Lego sets, every brick is worth about 10 cents ballpark. And then if it's a licensed property, it's going to cost a little bit more. It's about normal. Let's see. Release date, November 1st. Hey, if you're able to, I'd love to have a Mego Atlas figure. So I'd pay you for it if you can get one. We went from Mego to Lego. Mego, Lego, but it's pronounced Mego and Lego. How does the English language even work? Well, wait a minute. Lego would probably be Dutch, wouldn't it? So never mind. We'll blame the Dutch for mispronouncing our beautiful English words. I'm just giving things. I'm just giving an entire people a hard time. It's usually called racism. I just call it giving people a hard time. It's awful. Anyway, this is fun. So I had this in the news. Today I went over to the grocery store and I was allowing myself some fun by just walking through the toy aisle. I didn't buy anything, but I saw a Lego set, an X-Men Lego set, and the price blew my mind. Does this show up? I can't get it to focus really, can I? So this is like an X-Men jet, okay? It's got 359 pieces. That means that if it was a normal Lego set, it might cost $40. Licensed, we could expect it maybe as high as $50. Guess how much it costs? 359 pieces. $85 is what it says right here. $85. Oh, I can't get it to focus. Darn it. Sorry, everybody. Oh, yeah, our local grocery store, it's a local chain called Fred Meyer. It's sort of also got a little bit of everything, almost like a Walmart, I guess. It's mainly a grocery store, but it has like seasonal things and like, a kitchen cooking aisle. It sells couches, so sorry. So, yeah, $85 it was Fred Meyer. When I bought the X-Jet, I paid something like $75. So that $85, I wonder what the store added to it. I don't know, but even $75, I can't believe you paid that, Rob. That's so much. That's so much. Oh my God, I was blown away by that. I was like, what am I missing? And I'm thinking that it's my local store, and I posted it to social media, and a lot of people were like, yeah, no, that's the going price at stores for that set, $85. It doesn't make any sense. And it's like, okay, so, normal, this almost 3,100 brick set costs $330. That's not that much of a bump up compared to like, what the jet set is. I don't know what that's going on. Oh yeah, I've seen the Airbnb X Mansion. We talked about it on this show, actually. Yeah, Legos definitely aren't cheap. And some of that I get. I'll just say some of that I get because, A, they have great quality control. They do. If you get like knockoff brick sets, they don't always hold together as well. Sometimes they can even be missing a piece. Like Lego's got great quality control, okay? B, if you don't have a lot of money and you get a kid a Lego set, they can basically they build the main thing, but then they can usually build their own ideas quite a bit. I certainly did as a kid. I did actually not have a lot of Lego sets, but I just built my own stuff out of them. So there's a lot of replayability there, So I sort of get why they cost what they do. I sort of get it. But that's so much. All right, let's keep going. What an episode. Oh, I thought this was interesting. I noticed that they all sort of have these energy effects and stuff, but I think the one here for Gambit with the playing cards and this Cyclops laser blast that connects to his eye visor, I'm pretty sure those are both new pieces if you're really a brickhead or something, whatever they call it. The only thing I thought was a little on the cheap side, without really seeing what's on the interior of this Professor X is just the default ball head with an exposed little clickable thing on the top. They have a cap that you can put on to give characters a bald head, and looks like they didn't give that to Professor X. That's a little cheap. Right. Did I say Legos? Because the plural of Lego is Lego. Thank you, Gene. Marvel announced some very, very weird pairings. I kind of like how weird they are. So specifically, Marvel announced a new set of one-shots, 6 different one-shots, all by writer J. Michael Straczynski. They feature unlikely pairings, and they start in January. Let's look at what they've got. Dr. Doom and Rocket Raccoon. That's a tough set of personalities to imagine together. Captain America and Volstagg from Thor. Okay. Nick Fury versus Fin Fang Foom. Doesn't seem like a fair matchup, but okay. Hulk and Doctor Strange. I'll be honest, that one's not as weird. They were on the Defenders for a long time together. But a backup story starring Aunt May and Agatha Harkness. Okay, back in. Let's see. Ghost Rider versus Galactus. I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. And finally, Spider-Man versus Dr. Octopus. Okay, kind of fizzled out at the end there, didn't we? That's not the most weird pairing, especially since they used verses there. But anyway, I have to admit, Doctor Doom and Rocket Raccoon, Captain America, Volstagg, Nick Fury, Fin Fang Foom, those first 3, yeah, I'm kind of in. Depending on the artists. Oh, I guess they have the artist noted. I'm sorry, I just realized that. Okay, Doctor Doom and Rocket Raccoon is Will Robson. That's cool. Hulk, Doctor Strange, Herman Peralta. Bernard Chang on the Captain America Volstagg. Juan Ferreira on Ghost Rider Galactus. Nick Fury versus Fin Fang Foom is Elena Casagrande. Cool. Oh, and Phil Noto on Spider-Man versus Dr. Octopus. Well, that's a great artist. Oh, yeah, I'm enjoying Agatha all along. It's, I think, Penguin's also a good show. There's Penguin, Uzumaki, and Agatha all along, so, I'm a little spoiled for comic book-related shows right now. But if I'm being honest, I'm probably enjoying Agatha the most. It's fun. Yeah, could, but we've had that before. Frank Castle did become Ghost Rider and then a Herald of Galactus. That's Cosmic Ghost Rider. That does exist. So, hey, who knows? We'll see. Moving on. Marvel partners with Whatnot for comic trading packs. Maybe a more accurate way of describing this would be that Whatnot licensed some Marvel stuff. Let me share. So on Thursday, October 17th, this Thursday, Whatnot will be selling exclusive Marvel trading cards on their app. There's going to be a bunch of different retailers. Apparently, it's limited to only 5,000 packs. The stuff in them, they've got standard foil, they've got silver foil, gold foil, and prism foil. Yeah. Ultra rare Marvel red foil, only 24 per cover. I don't know how many covers or what covers they're using for this, but could be fun if you're into trading cards. I do like cards. Boy, I will say, when I was first getting into comics, I would also get a bunch of trading cards. I like things like Garbage Pail Kids, and then they had Marvel Universe trading cards for a while, and then those were all exploding so much that there were like DC and what's the company I'm thinking of that had like Solar, Man of the Atom, and Turok and Magnus. Starts with a V. All of a sudden, Valiant had cards. I like them. I like trading cards. I missed most of the news. Did I talk about the situation with Strange Brain Parts losing his computer data? I did not hear about that one, I'm afraid. I would not wish that on anybody. Oh my God, that's horrible. Aw. I'll look into it, but that's news to me. That's news to me. Is Sam Raimi returning to direct Doctor Strange 3? It seems like a very likely possibility. Let me explain. So this comes from industry scooper Jeff Snyder, his In Snyder show. But he's more right than wrong. He's one that I trust more than other Hollywood scoopsters. I will say that. He's better than My Time to Shine Hello, which will sometimes get a really big one, but sometimes also give us one that's like kind of obviously not right. So anyway, according to Jeff Snyder, Sam Raimi is close to signing a deal to return to direct the third Doctor Strange movie, which Raimi would do after he's going to helm a horror movie called Send Help. So that happens in January. So early, we'll say like half the year to 3/4 of the year, he'll be making Send Help, and then might be available to start Doctor Strange 3 at the end of 2025, maybe. Doctor Strange will probably appear in both the 2026 and 2027 Avengers movies. So there's no real word if this would be something that comes out right before those movies, in between theoretically, or after. I just don't know. Marvel used to give us that clear roadmap for the next 3 years. They don't really do that as much anymore, do they? There are also rumors out there, maybe you came across this, that Denzel Washington will play Dormammu. But I'll be honest, I tried to track those back to see what the original source was, and none of that seemed very legit to me. So I think that there's a good chance Raimi could return to direct a third Doctor Strange movie. I believe that one, but I don't really believe in the Denzel as Dormammu thing. I think that there's a small chance that if he did that second one, that he'd have a little bit more control and get to like make it a little bit more of a Raimi movie. It's just a guess, but yeah. Okay, fair enough. I still enjoyed it. I don't know if it's like a favorite. It's like, I guess, middle of the road for me. There are some cool, scary moments. Like they're short, but there's a couple little like things. Like when Wanda comes out of a mirror, like all sort of crooked and everything, and then rearranges herself. I was like, that was kind of creepy. Of course, like when Doctor Strange sort of possesses the dead Doctor Strange from another dimension, that was pretty good too. Yeah, I would like to see Clea. I would really like that. He did? Denzel's going after my role as Pace Pop Pete? That's awful. I've not heard that rumor. Fair enough. Who knows? It seems more likely than unlikely, but I just don't know. Who wants Stray Dogs plushes? I do. I definitely do. Are you kidding me? If you use this QR code that I designed, it'll take you to the campaign to get these. Let me talk about it. This is coming through Dynamite. Yes, Stray Dogs was in Image Comics, but it's creator-owned, so they can work with whoever they want to do whatever they want. Dynamite has announced that they will offer plushes of some of the main characters from Stray Dogs. That was the horror comic by Tony Fleeks and Trish Forstner. The campaign's going to run for a limited time on BackerKit. Right now, you could, if you go here, it'll just take you to be notified when it launches. So I don't know exactly when. Maybe if this does well, we would get feral plushies. One thing at a time, but yeah. And then I guess that's all I have here. Although I will say that, Stray Dogs, before even issue 1 came out, that got optioned by Paramount Animation. So there might also be an animated movie at some point. I just think this is cool. Stray Dogs is a great comic, folks. And I say that as though you maybe hadn't heard. It's that book sold very, very well. Let's see. Was there any? They never told you? Sorry. But I think it could go very well. That book sold very well. And a cute little plush based on it. Yeah. I like it too. It's just fun. I don't know. It amused me. I signed up to be notified, and I think it's really cool. Last piece of news I've got, also Dynamite. They announced this. Well, it came out officially this morning. Silverhawks. Oh, nice. You did love it. So maybe your brother will get you one of the main characters. We'll see, right? So what else is Dynamite doing? Silverhawks. Silverhawks. I think that was how the song went. So they announced that they're going to launch a comic based on the 80s cartoon Silverhawks in 2025. Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Did I say that the right way? I'm a great singer. Thank you for the super chat, Steve. This is going to be written by Ed Brisson. He's had a good year. Ort. Also art, but also some orts. There's going to be some art by George Cambadeus, and George has worked for Dynamite before. I know he did the Hercules book. I thought that looked really good. Talented artist. Curious what it looks like. This launches in January. They're going to have variant covers. Hey, it's Dynamite. Dynamite is synonymous with variant covers, but they got some pretty great artists here. This one, Lucio Perillo, Jay Lee, James Stocco, Declan Shalvey, Geraldo Borges, and Mannix. So, intriguingly, Dynamite referred to this launch in their press release as an extension of the Thunderverse. The cartoon, for those that don't know, while it didn't cross over, it was originally pitched as an extension of Thundercats. Like, it was originally designed to be set in that sort of shared universe. It was by the same production company. And it looks like there was an Easter egg for this in issue 8 of Thundercats in this little sort of museum area. This looks an awful lot like a device that Monstar, the villain of Silverhawks, had. So, yeah, it looks like this might be in a shared universe. Might be in a shared universe. Mannix, good cartoony style, very different. Thunderverse, it's the first time I've heard that. Yep. Let's see. I always thought they should make a movie of Silverhawks. Seems like you could make a great franchise out of it. It's definitely a fun thing. I think that I liked Thundercats and Silverhawks, but I can't say that I was a massive fan when I was a kid. I didn't watch it religiously, but when I watched it, I'd always get a kick out of it. My sister and I would always do the voice from one character in Silverhawks. I forget the character's name, but there was a space cabbie, not the DC character, but a space cab driver, and he'd just always go, "You know what I mean?" I don't know. So we would always just sort of say that to each other. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jeannie? Probably. So, yeah. That was fun. But that's everything I got in news. I think that'll probably do pretty darn well. I think that there's a lot of people that like the characters from and the world of Silverhawks. They were like cyborgs that were basically space cops. They had like a grizzled old boss that would send them out on missions. And one of them was an alien. The Copper Kid was from the planet of the Mimes. He would just talk in whistles. No, Snarf was from Thundercats, Genie, and he'd just go, "Snarf, why, I'm scared of going out there." But the one we would do the voice of was whatever the cab driver was. He'd just go, "You know what I mean?" All right. CBR is doing their top 100 comic book runs poll again, and the last day is to vote tomorrow. Are you going to vote? Maybe if I have time. If I have time, maybe. Who knows? Let's close this out and switch over to my second camera. I'm just plugging it in and getting it set up, and we'll look at some of the comics that came out this week. That's always fun. Legally, it's fun. Because we got to talk about stuff like Absolute Batman. Was it a good Snarf impression? I wasn't really thinking about it, but thank you. Snarf, why, we're going to get in a lot of trouble. Snarf, the Robert Burbles need our help. Snarf, I hate Robert Burbles, Lionel. That's racist. Seymour, I think that was his name. Seymour the cab driver. I'll be at NYCC this Thursday. Any way I can get a selfie with you. I'm only there on Saturday. Thursday, I'm flying out to New York, so I won't be there, I'm afraid. I mean, if anybody does see me, of course you can stop me and say hello. Like, I'm always flattered to talk to anybody that has watched my show or enjoys comics. Like, trust me, I'm happy to talk to any and everyone. But I'm only there on Saturday, I'm afraid. Oh, that's true. They did announce a Zootopia book. I guess I'm just not as. I did like Zootopia, actually. Sorry, I didn't remember to include it. But yeah, Zootopia book. Chris asked me for $62 to take a selfie, but then made me a mod. Have a great time at the show. Have a great time. If I had any idea how you get voice work, I would do that in a second. I love doing voices. But then again, all I'm really doing is imitating right now somebody else's voice, right? I'm sure all of you can do at least one or two characters. But if you didn't watch the latest trash movie Bonanza here, folks, then you would have missed my Commandant Lassard impression from Police Academy. We have many, many wonderful cadets here, including my daughter, Punky. Punky and I are getting married. I don't know what that means. We've got count them, two horror episodes of Trash Movie Bonanza recorded that will be making their way to all of you as Jamie finishes his editing process. So two horror-themed ones. One about a bad movie. One about, in my opinion, pretty good movie with a special guest. Well, I'll do it for $1. Yeah. Holy cow, we've had many, many Commandant Lassard impressions over the years, but this one is by far the best, Mahoney. One of the guys who voices Scooby-Doo lives in my area. That's awesome. All right, let's talk about this. Absolute Batman is finally here. I'm finally allowed to talk about it. Scott Snyder was kind enough to let me see it early when we did the interview on Comic Tropes so that I could be familiar. We didn't do any spoilers, and I kept it to myself. But now I can talk about it, and I'm excited to. I think that overall, I really like this book, first of all. Let me put that out front. There's I think only one criticism I'm going to have, and I'm going to hold that off. Let me talk about what's different about this. And maybe this is obvious if you've followed the news, but the Absolute Universe is a new universe, okay? It's a new take on Batman. I'm going to try to get forward to... we've got a lot of preamble here, actually. That's super relevant. I just want to get to some Batman stuff real quick. All right, so... Black Mask has a bunch of goons attack a City Hall event. And this is where Batman makes his debut. And as you can see, this is a very different looking Batman. He's got Bane proportions. This is a thick boy, as they call him. And it's a different Bruce Wayne. This is Bruce Wayne, but he's got a lot of differences. And I think it's important to talk about some of those differences because Batman is so well known. So it's like, what does this give you that we haven't had before? Well, this gives us a Batman that's a lot more connected to the everyman on the street because he is not a billionaire. He's not a super wealthy man. But he is a smart guy still. He's very smart and he's obviously very fit. Specifically, this is a Batman who has gone through a personal tragedy and has spent his life training himself both physically and mentally, which is similar to, of course, the Batman that we know. but he doesn't have all the same advantages. In this book, there is an Alfred, but he is definitely not a butler. And he's certainly got nothing so far to do with Bruce. In fact, he's still an active duty spy for MI6. And he's been sent to Gotham. So their paths are going to cross, but he's a spy. Some of the interpretations of Alfred have had him as having like a military or spy background. This is just saying that he's younger and still active. And then Bruce has gone through a tragedy, but it's not the same tragedy. First of all, he doesn't lose both of his parents. He loses one. That's interesting. So he's still got a family, and he's a civil engineer. So he's a guy that designs stuff. He's an engineer. So he's got lots of gadgets. Batman's always had gadgets, but what if you made it so that like Batman that was his thing. That was his advantage, is his mind thinking of clever ways to make a tactical type of suit that's still a superhero suit. So for instance, he can like attach a baton to this humongous bat emblem, and he's got something that's between like an axe and a hammer. Okay, that's a little funny, but it's cool. And specifically, he's got a very different cape. Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta have given a lot of thought to how bats move and what they do with their wings, and tried to find a way to incorporate that into the design. So this cape has, it can have whips that can also sort of harden here. So it lets him fight at a distance if he wants to. Like he can like wrap it around a guy's neck and yank him up or down, because he can sort of solidify that. He's got triggers on it. But here's the fun thing. Look at this. Batman sort of jumps up and it says clank, clank. His wings lock into place and he's balancing on them to give these guys a kick. But there are bats that walk on their wings, because those are their appendages. I like that. So they're giving a lot of thought to trying to find ways to take elements that are part of Batman, but find a way to do it in a different way. I'm not even going to say a more grounded way, because come on, I mean, usually if a guy gets as thick as this, they're not that nimble. He's also young, and he's had like a bunch of jobs, like, he's studied law, he's studied chemistry, etc. Now he's a civil engineer. It's to give him access to all of this stuff. So it's not necessarily more realistic or grounded, but it is different, and it's a little more relatable. It's a little bit more like, okay, think about this. Let's think about this in terms of the history. When Batman came out, the end of the 30s into the 40s, the people creating that had been coming out of the Great Depression. And the idea of being wealthy was absolutely seen as a bit of a superpower. It was an unlikely advantage, if you were rich. Oh, I mean, that's the power fantasy, just being wealthy. Just having a good job was exciting. So, that was some of it. But these days it's like, okay, well, come on. Like, are billionaires usually our heroes? Or are billionaires usually like the guys that are profiting off of the back of somebody else? Like, who actually gets stuff done for the better of society? Is it even politicians? Well, we're going to say that Commissioner Gordon / now Mayor Gordon is a good person. But the people that get stuff done are the civil servants a lot of times, right? And so that he's a hero in that regard. And it gives him access to things like knowing buildings that are built for big companies, and then they just sit on them and don't occupy them. And that's where he will put like temporary places to work. He'll like put a bunch of computers in like a high rise that's getting built that nobody's checking on, and just sort of hide in the towers. I don't know. I like some of these ideas. But here's one thing I don't love. I like part of it, though. I don't dislike it. I like part of it. His father in this is not a doctor. He's not from old money. He is a teacher, a school teacher. And his father gets killed in a shooting. Okay, well, that is definitely a real fear that I think a lot of us have these days, because every once in a while there is a shooting, and you just never know. But in this, it doesn't take place in a school. It takes place on a field trip at a zoo. I'd say that's pulling a punch a little bit. And it is like dark and sad and scary to think of, a teacher getting killed at a school shooting. But I'd also say that is definitely the story that we hear. We don't hear stories of kids dying on a school field trip, really, in a school shooting. We hear about it happening at schools. Yeah, I see some of these comments, and it's kind of cool. Like, Bruce is so smart that he's pre-planned all sorts of things he's going to do when he fights these thugs. And what do you call it? Alfred's watching over this and not getting involved. And he talks about how Bruce is cutting them and stuff like that with his little gadgets, but it's all non-lethal. He sets off an explosion at one point, and Alfred's like, interesting. This guy knows what he's doing. He didn't kill a single person. That's the superhero-y stuff. Anyway, here's what's cool about it. He's an underdog, okay? Super capable. A superhero basically has to be. Any hero is basically super capable. But it takes away a lot of his advantages. It takes away his money, of course. And a lot comes with that. And it takes away his support. But you know what? It also gives him some more responsibility than I'd say we'd seen before. He didn't lose both of his parents. He doesn't just get to do whatever he wants as an adult. He's got still a responsibility to his mother. He's a young man, but he's got his mother, and that's a responsibility that a lot of us are responsible for our parents. It's cool. It's doing things different while still being recognizable as Batman. I'm impressed. With the changes, and I like the idea of trying to find a way that a hero who has been around for so long. A lot of times, we have to create some sort of deep lore or mythology with Gotham City, or create a really interesting new villain to find something interesting to do with the character. Change up the genre, do an Elseworld story where, it's Batman, but it's, one that's takes place from the 40s through the 60s, something like that. Well, this just simplifies that and just says, well, what if we just took away some of his advantages and gave him a little more responsibility? It is a weakness, exactly. He kind of like a lot of superheroes will have. Peter Parker has his Aunt May or something like that, and he doesn't want to reveal his identity because he doesn't want Aunt May to get targeted. I like a lot of this. Reminds you of Darren Aronofsky's canceled Batman Year One script? I can see that. It can be, yeah. It can be. I agree. We'll see what they do with Wonder Woman, though. Alfred is definitely not bald or frail or fat. He's very capable himself. And you can just sort of get the sense that Alfred's going to want to... He admires this Batman, even if he's just discovering him and everything. He's just discovering him. Yeah, there was also some interesting things there where there's some references to characters that are established villains that are not villains right now, and maybe they don't become villains, to be honest. I don't know. If they do, that's its own tragedy. I also did this new version of Black Mask is a total creep. You know what he reminds? He has all this money, and he's got a DJ playing house music as loud as possible, and he's annoying like the established mafia guys with how he does things. But you know what he reminds me of is like a spoiled brat YouTuber that makes way too much money. He's just got so much money, but he's dangerous, man. He's a sociopath. He doesn't have any real morals or inhibiting factors. And I love that this like goes from like a skull to this weird blob of an orb. It's creepier than just a skull mask. He's got a really weird mask. I like it. I like it a lot. That was a lot. I didn't expect to talk about Absolute Batman necessarily that much because I don't want to give away every little thing that's happening in this. Maybe a little. He's just like, yeah, I don't like him. I legit found him off-putting. Black Mask. I found him off-putting. What else did we have this week that was cool? There's a lot of stuff that's worth talking about. I think that the ones I want to talk about the most, I'm just going to like sort of bring to the top here. Let me talk real quick, maybe not real quick, we'll see, about Terminator issue 1 through Dynamite. Written by Declan Shalvey, art by Luke Sparrow. I have to admit, I'm not familiar with Luke Sparrow and Colin Craker, who drew this, but it's a good, realistic style, which I think is what a Terminator book needs. I don't think it benefits from going too cartoony. I think you need you need a horror aspect, in my opinion. I think that Terminator works best when it's about something horrific as compared to just action. I think that it should be scary. But I am a little confused about exactly what this book is after just one issue. Because basically we've got a Terminator who's been hunting some people that went off the grid a long time ago. It was hunting them. It comes after them. It's unrelenting. That part's all good. It's interesting to follow them. But it felt like by the end of it, it was done. I was like, like, what was their significance? We're never even told explicitly anything like, say, like, these people are part of the future resistance. We don't know yet. So there's some mystery to this. I would have liked a little bit more detail there personally. I was a little confused about why this Terminator is going after these people. So I don't know. I don't know yet what the story is. Like, for instance, is this going to be a one-off, like, for a couple issues, and then we're going to get some sort of ongoing story? I'm going to need to read another issue to understand what the idea here is. I do need to read a little bit more. And then we get a 2-page story written by your friend and mine, Sal from Comic Pop, with art by Colin Craker. And the cool thing about this is, like, I mean, 2 pages is not a lot to tell a story in, but it's going to be continued. But one Terminator sees another, and you see in the Terminator vision, which is, I think, a great use of the Terminator vision, it says redundancy detected. Okay. Redundancy implies, like, you know, another Terminator. Well, is this Terminator, like, coming across a Terminator on the same mission? Is one Terminator out to stop the other Terminator? I don't know. That I am intrigued by. And I like the action. I like how scary some of this stuff is framed. Great art for the story. Straightforward, effective, good coloring too. There's a lot that's good. I just, after reading this, didn't quite understand who the main characters were. I don't know. I hope that this does not get overly convoluted with timelines. I am of the opinion that, like, while time travel is an important element in Terminator, when it goes too far into time travel stuff, it gets to be a convoluted mess. But comics might be able to overcome that if they can tell a longer story and feed us those details. I would say Terminator Genesis is possibly my least favorite of the Terminator stories, and that one had a lot of time travel stuff going on, a lot of weird stuff. Whereas I think that if you just use it as, like, this is the excuse of where a killer robot is coming from, or you say, like, this is the scary future that we have to prevent, and that's the extent of it, great. That's good. But as soon as it could get too convoluted if you have multiple timelines and stuff. It could. Doesn't have to, but it could. You got to be really careful there. Yeah, I'm happy for Sal too. I am too. I watched the Terminator Zero. It was pretty good overall. I do think it fell a little into the trap of becoming a little too timey-wimey, a little too much. And I'll just sort of contradict myself by giving one example of where I did appreciate where they did some stuff to do with time travel, and that was the 2-season TV show Sarah Connor Chronicles. The only thing is they did not within the episodes just constantly go like back and forth and this and that. Instead, they did it more subtly. You slowly realized that some of the characters that came back, I'll give one specific example. Let me start over. Who was the guy that protected Sarah Connor in the first movie? I'm just bad at names. Kyle Reese. Okay. In the Sarah Connor Chronicles, Kyle's younger brother goes back in time. He's a resistance fighter. He teams up with the Connor family. Really cool character, actually. Really cool. Different from Kyle, but good. And in that show, like in season 2, another resistance fighter comes back in time, and it's somebody that Kyle's brother knew and had a relationship with. And they get together again, and then when they're talking at night, they realize that they each have slightly different memories. And what that means is that the lady that came back in time, because she came later, she's actually coming from a slightly changed future, which makes the main characters realize that they are having an impact on the future. They just haven't solved everything yet. And I thought that was really clever. I thought that was really clever how they did that. They slowly clue into the fact that, oh, you're technically not the exact same person I knew, because the future is changing and they're still sending like Terminators back, but it's technically from a future that keeps changing. Like we have cut off sort of a version of the future, but we haven't perfected it yet. And that was for an ongoing story. I thought that was really cool. Anyway, sorry to go deep into the weeds on a show that got canceled decades ago, but I love that show. I think it's really strong. And while it technically sort of ends on, you could argue that it's a cliffhanger, but also with Terminator's cyclical logic, it also does form a type of complete story too. So it's definitely still worth watching. It was really good. It was really good. Yeah, I liked it. Season 1 ended, for instance, with a Terminator killing a bunch of cops. But it's a TV show, so it didn't have the budget that a movie would with tons of big stunts. So instead, it was set to a musical montage of the Johnny Cash song When the Man Comes Around, with a shot like in slow-mo on a pool at a motel. And every once in a while, another dead cop gets thrown from like the second floor into the pool. And you see the occasional bullets coming in. In other words, all the action is happening just to the side. And you just keep seeing the carnage and the result of this huge fight. And I thought that was a really well done way to do it on a budget. Terminator 1 is better than 2, but 2 isn't bad at all. They're both different things. Terminator 1, I think, is a great horror/thriller. And number 2 does lean more into the action. But what number 2 does is it really talks about fate, and that central phrase of no fate but what we make is a great line. It's a great line. So I'm curious, what will they do with this version of Terminator? Is this going to just be an anthology of different Terminators targeting different people? Is there going to be an ongoing story with some new main characters? Is the threat still Skynet, or is it going to be more intimate? Is it going to be more epic? I don't know from just one issue, unfortunately. So I can only give a partial review, I think, to be fair. I liked it, but I need to know more, and I'm curious enough that I want to read issue 2 to see where it goes. I do want to read issue 2, so I do think I still recommend it. It's just there's a lot still up in the air that I can't figure out personally. Maybe I'm missing something obvious. I didn't see any real exposition to explain what I was doing. I would think so. I would think that there's going to be an ongoing story. So, Ultimates continues to impress, and maybe, I think arguably, every issue has been better than the last so far. We're up to issue 5. And, wait, am I right? Does it even say? I just said 5 so casually, and I didn't look very closely. Where's the number? Where's the number of this damn thing? Oh, right up here. There it is. I was like, why do I think it's 5? I'm like looking all over for a number. It's in the top right. Got it. Okay. Even if you don't read the other things in the Ultimate Universe, yeah, you know what? This might be my favorite. And Ultimate Spider-Man is really good. Ultimate X-Men is really good. But the Ultimates is doing a lot of cool things. It's hard to say for sure. But those are the 3 Ultimate books that I like a lot. In this one, we made a new version of Hawkeye. Basically, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds in the lore, but this team of Avengers, or the Ultimates, whatever you want to call them, Tony Stark had given the Hawkeye costume and weaponry to Clint Barton, and Clint Barton just walked away from it, okay? He just, it wasn't the right time. And it's such an interesting idea, because when Hawkeye was introduced in the comics, he was originally a villain, and then he got reformed by Captain America. But he's getting his opportunity at a completely different time. It's a different timeline. It's a different world. And it's interesting to think that Hawkeye, who's a great superhero in the main Marvel universe, that if he didn't have the right opportunities at the right time, his life could have taken a very different path. And I do think that there's something in Clint Barton where he could still become a hero at some point, but it's not the right time now. And I was like, that's an interesting idea, because a lot of heroes, they just have their origin. They were always ready to be heroes. They just got their opportunity. But Clint was a villain in the comics originally, and I kind of like that. It's just like one panel, by the way. They were like, we tried to give him the opportunity. He threw away the costume and walked away. But somebody else picked up the costume and has taken it. And they're like, look, I used Stark tech to make this sort of a backpack that rapidly prints trick arrows, essentially. And the right person with that weapon could take out an entire army. So Captain America goes to investigate and see if this person's worthy of having these resources, or if they need to be taken out, etc. And this person has been destroying oil refineries across the country with this stuff. But it makes sense. Why? Because this is a Native American who took this, and there's some philosophical arguments between him and Captain America. This is a very angry young person, and I specifically say person because I'll just put it out there. This person identifies as non-binary. It's not a big part of it or anything, but that's just what this person is. And also has a lot of anger towards how their people have been treated, which is fair, Anyway, definitely still a match for Captain America with these arrows. In fact, look, the arrow some of them can literally turn. You don't always have to be on target. You don't have to have you have to have some skill, but not perfect skill. I like this update on the arrows and how they're sort of programmed to be what you need. A sonic arrow or a curving arrow, etc. Great art. Look at this cool shot where Captain America is jumping away from exploding arrows, and we get that what's that effect called again? I've the DeLuca effect, multiple poses in the same panel. Marvel tends to do this thing where they have always like colored the previous ones like a lighter shade, but I think that that's a really cool action shot. I think it's really impressive. I like the little highlights that the artist does to show what kind of arrows are coming. Who's this artist one more time? I'm sorry. I'm so terrible at names. Why can't I remember? Oh, Juan Frigeri. But it's nice to see a little bit of a philosophical argument, like the person saying, like Hawkeye saying, oh, look at the costume you're wearing, like you obviously stand for everything, America has done. And he's like, not necessarily. Like, he's like, I'm listening to you. Let me listen to you. I need to know what kind of a person you are. He's like, you are judging me, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to learn more about you. It's cool. This Hawkeye has an attitude. And you know what? The original Hawkeye had an attitude. But this is based in something a little more believable. We also, by the very end, learn that some of what this Hawkeye is saying could be bullshit. Because he says, for instance, what is he? I don't know. They say all sorts of things about their past and who they are, and that their real name is like Charlie Hawkeye, and Captain America is like, really? And he's like, or they are like, you know what? Like, you'll believe anything. So I don't know if their name really is Charlie Hawkeye or if that was just Charlie bullshitting. Great art, interesting debates over, what the right thing is to do. Look, it's totally fair, in my opinion, that some natives would be upset with how much things like oil drilling does to their reservations. There have been some bad real-life stories of pipelines breaking or not being built properly and severely polluting and damaging their environment. So I understand why they'd be upset. I do. Of course, this is, what it is ultimately, though? This is classic superhero storytelling. You've got two superheroes, and they seem to have a difference of opinion. They're going to fight back and forth. Who's better? Who's going to win? I'm kind of curious who's going to win. And then a big villain emerges, and they have to team up against him. And you'd think, oh, that's, not playing fair. We need to see who's definitively better. Now, sometimes you need to give the audience what they need, not what they want. And what they need is to think about who's better and to think about why they're fighting so that they can have those arguments and debates with their friends or with the other people at the comic book shop. They could go like, oh, I think if this had happened, Captain America would have won. No, you're crazy. Hawkeye has more skill than you'd think. Like they could win. That's not really what we want. We want to see a little bit of like just how they'd interact. We want to see, but ultimately we want them to be heroes. We want them to work together against an actual threat. Because neither of these are bad people. Not really. Captain America and Hawkeye, they have a difference of opinion a little bit, but neither of them are bad people. The bad people are, in this case, an almost cartoonishly evil corporation, Roxxon, who's, just ruining the environment and has actual mercenary army backing them up. So look at that though. Isn't that good art? What's cool is drawing a pinup or something is sometimes it's easier than drawing like panel to panel storytelling. So a page like this, at first you'd think like, okay, that's a little more fun until you start looking at some of what's going on here. And that specifically, like once characters are actually physically interacting, you have to think things through a lot more. If you're just drawing one person, you can make them look really cool. As soon as that person has to sort of like physically hold and grab and interact with somebody else, you have to start really thinking in 3 dimensions. like how far in can I draw, the arm if it's grabbing this person where it still looks right? You have to really think that through. And then on top of that, when there are these panel to panel things, you have to have the characters drawn consistently. Not just like a good face here and a good face here. That has to be the same face. So there's a lot of great things that Juan is doing in this. I'm really impressed. Great variety of shots. Like this looks like Captain America. Okay, he's at arrow point. He's in the low position here. And he's physically standing a little lower. He's got a defensive stance. They've got like this threat encroaching into the panel here. Great inset panels of like, this character is aimed to the left. Captain America is looking up to the other angle. There's some really nice decisions here for storytelling. There's some good depth in this shot. I think that there's a chance that this Hawkeye does have some military training. I agree. There's a lot to like about it. I was expecting these to both be fun. These are both #1 issues of some pretty big launches. They have some great talent behind it. I hadn't heard as much about Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri. I hadn't heard as much about them. And issue 1 was decent. And then issues 2 is like a little more interesting. And 3 was even more exciting. 4 was amazing. Every issue of this is giving me something a little bit different. It's really impressing the hell out of me. Oh, I don't think that new Hawkeye is that young. I think younger than Captain America, but I don't think that young. I'm pretty sure not. Anyway, I enjoyed it as all. Transformers issue 13, I think, look, what else can I say? Quick reviews, okay? Toxic Avenger 1 came out, written by Matt Bors, art by Fred Harper. This is irreverent and funny and different, and they're able to make Toxic Avenger look weirder than he does in either the movies or the cartoon, because the cartoon needs to be family friendly. The movie was limited by like the actor that's underneath. You can go wilder with this stuff, but it feels like it belongs in a trauma movie. They're poking fun at the same sort of stuff. It's legit pretty funny. Fantastic Four, I recommend every month. All I can say is, again, it's a single issue story with a clever solution to things. And the only thing I really want to talk about is that I love this issue, except for one thing. Reed is getting like laser blasts thrown at him, and he splits his head here to avoid the blast. That's not how Reed's powers work. He's not Plastic Man. He can't separate like that. He's pliable. In other words, he could have made his head bend down in the middle and elongate out to avoid a laser blast, but he can't literally like split his head. Like there should be basically hair going down here because he pushed the top of his head as an indent. I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I know I'm being nitpicky. I know I am. But, I'm a comic book guy, and that's what we do. I just don't feel that. And if they're trying to say that Reed's developing like new ways of using his powers, it's like I sort of get it, but I just don't think that that's how his powers should be. And I don't think it's necessary. You could have had him like move his body in a really cool way. I don't think he should split apart. I don't think that that's how Reed's powers work. But it was a clever solution to a weird mystery again. That I liked. I liked that it was a pairing of Johnny Storm and Reed Richards, and how they actually sort of sometimes bring out the worst in each other because they goad each other on to try new things. They like the excuse to be a little irresponsible. It's charming. It's good character development. It's a good mystery. It's good art. It's a good issue. I wish I had like more exciting things to say about Scarlett. All I can say is that it wraps up a good spy story, but it also hasn't connected much with the rest of the Energon universe. I see some areas where it could. It seems like the Arashi Kage clan got access to a potent weapon, and maybe that has to do with Energon for all I know. It's like a special sword. But it ends with like Scarlett and Jinx and Storm Shadow all basically still in Japan. And I'm like, okay, so none of them are joining either G.I. Joe or Cobra yet? Okay. You know, I thought the point of all of this was to have them start picking sides. But here's what I'll talk about for the last issue. And that is just that Transformers number 13 had a different artist on it, Jason Howard, who I remember best from Astounding Wolfman, a book Robert Kirkman did with him. And I like his art okay. I will say that I actually like his art in Transformers here better than I did in Astounding Wolfman, actually. But it also doesn't say anything like guest artist. So I don't know. Issue 13, does this mean that we have a new artist? Because I didn't see any press release about that. If anybody knows something, let me know. I don't know if Jason is the fill-in artist or the new regular artist. But this is essentially a standalone flashback where we get to learn about young Starscream before he's ever part of the Decepticons. And in fact, he has a different name. He's called Ulktar. That's his Cybertron name. And he's friends with Jetfire. We've seen that in different continuities. And this yellow guy that's just joined the Decepticons for some reason or other. Here, look at this shot, though. I will say, Jason Howard really impressed me with this shot. These three guys went to see like one of the biggest Transformers fly overhead. This is in the toys. This was Omega Supreme. I don't know if this is still Omega Supreme or a Omega Supreme. I don't know. All I know is that, like, you know, he's absolutely massive. He's almost the size of a city or something. And he's flying overhead. And to the other Transformers, it's almost like he's a god. Not quite, but like almost. They're very reverential and like amazed and impressed. And it's a big deal to like see one of these beings like move overhead. And Starscream wants to get its attention. So he goes to a munitions depot and literally blows it up just to get the attention of this. And he gets it to wave at them. He gets it to notice them. And basically, to sort of cut a long story short, he is said to have screamed at the stars. Okay, that's a cute origin for his name. I'm going to skip some of this stuff that would be more spoilery, where we sort of learn how Starscream took a dark path. But it's interesting. It's a flashback to back on Cybertron, and it's cool to see Starscream presented in a different context where he's a little bit more of a scientist and less of a scheming warrior. That's cool. I like that. I like to see that Starscream is a tragic character. That's good. I like that. I can get behind Starscream as a tragic, flawed character. I don't know if this is going to this flashback is going to continue next month or if this is all we get, but we get enough. We get enough to understand the character a little better. And like I say, he's more tragic now than just despicable. But you also do see that he's flawed because, like I say, he blows up a munitions depot just to get somebody's attention. He causes a lot of property damage just to get noticed. It's interesting. It's cool. Oh. You know, Transformers has had a lot of interesting crossovers. And this is no exception. So, yeah, I do recommend it. It was cool. Like I hope Jorge Corona is coming back though, because I do like Jorge Corona, but I will also admit that's a hell of a great splash page. That's really, really good. Jason Howard is definitely a good fit for Transformers. I think he's better at Transformers than he is at like regular people. To be honest, it's cool. It's cool. That's about everything I think I've got to talk about for comic books that came out this week. Did you guys read anything that I skipped that I should have read? Are you watching or reading, I should say? Are you reading Conan? Conan? What? What a happy little Conan. When's Jim Zub going to add this version of Conan to the comics? Don't be a coward, Jim. It's crazy that they made a toy like that. Yes, it puts a lot of character into Starscream. Starscream's at his best when he's a screw-up. I agree with that, too. Yeah. Oh, overall, I liked it a lot. I definitely give it like an A. It had one element that I had a little bit of complaining about, but you guys can jump back and see. There's a market for Gunnar Conan, yes. Oh yeah, The Road by Larseray. Yeah, it does look gorgeous. I think that there's a chance that might make my top 10 horror books of the year. I think I'll do like a simple episode at the end of this month after I get back from New York Comic Con, talking about, what do you call it? The top 10 horror comics of the year. It's just something fun for me. And I'm working on some longer form content too. I know I've been doing some shorter sort of or easier maybe episodes on comic tropes, but I'm also trying to get a good amount of content out, it's fun. I think I love doing interviews, both on this channel and on Comic Tropes. And the tough thing to reconcile is that it absolutely does not help with the algorithm. It just, like, for instance, I've done a lot of interviews lately. I've been having fun doing them, so I'm going to do them when I want to. I've got a couple more coming up. And I thought it was an absolute privilege to talk to Jeff Darrow over on Comic Tropes. But if you look at the numbers for like any of my shows, they go way down after doing a couple interviews. So frustrating. So frustrating that like interviews aren't something that more comic fans want. I haven't had any time to work on the Leonardo drawing for my friend. I've told him, I was like, I'm so backed up with like making shows. I've got like the pencils, but I need to do all the inks. I know, I'm a terrible brother. Will you ever forgive me? I hope you do. I've added chapters to the Jeff Darrow interview, just so people, if they're somehow not vibing with one segment, they can jump to whatever the others are. Yeah, I'm still going to do them when I want to. I'm still going to do them, but it's clearly not what everybody wants. And I understand that, and I note it. So I'll go back and forth. But a lot of the people that I've had on for interviews are people that I really admire, and I want to help like give them a boost. And the frustrating thing is, if I keep doing that and the channel like numbers go down, I'm not really giving them the boost. It's frustrating. Thank you, Larry. Hope you have a great time in New York City. Here's something to offset our outrageous prices for everything over here. New York is expensive, but I think that like rent and mortgages there are a lot, but I don't think that like food is that bad, to be honest. I don't think food's that expensive in New York compared to like any other city, to be honest. We'll see. Oh, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, he shared a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, he told us the story of like seeing Mobius at the funeral and like seeing his actual body. It was a wild story. Just great. Oh, thank you for watching. I appreciate that. Yeah, he shared a lot of great stuff. He's so soft-spoken and so kind, but boy, just an immense talent, so kind, so friendly, great storyteller. Yeah, it was a super big privilege. So anyway, I've got that. I'm gonna wrap this up now. I'm going to take a moment to put some chapters on this video for people watching it after it's live, and then I'm going to quickly wolf down some dinner and come right back here to hopefully finish the edit on the next Comic Tropes. That is my goal. Thank you, everybody. I watched some, not all. But anyway, is there anything else I need to talk about? I'll just say this. Look, I will be at New York Comic Con Saturday only. I'm not at a table or anything like that. I'm just a fan like everybody else. But if you do go there and you see me, you might know what I look like or sound like. I don't know what you look like. So please, it's not a big deal to interrupt me. It's part of what I expect to happen at a convention with putting myself out there on YouTube. So if I'm having a conversation with somebody, I don't mind if you interrupt. It's happened before. I think people understand that's just the environment. Would it be rude, like, in a restaurant or something? Maybe, but I think in a convention center, if I'm talking to somebody and you just like wanted to tap me on the shoulder or say hey, Chris, I'm happy to talk for a moment with you. And cause I appreciate it. I've highlighted your comment before. How do I not know what you look and sound like? Right. But, stream sniping, that's why. But chat, you heard him. I'm just saying, I don't mind, because it's not like this happens to me in the grocery store. I'm not Robert Downey Jr. If I'm at a convention, I think that's a totally acceptable environment to say hello. Let's see, and always remind him of your name, because we all know he's terrible with names. Thanks a lot. What a great sister. All right, thank you. Yeah, Ducktales. Woo! Thanks, everybody. I had a good time. You get the double salute. Oh, I do have one more thing to say. I keep thinking I'm about to end the show. Sorry. I just realized, though. I don't think I'm going to be able to do a live stream next week because I actually do fly home on Monday. It's really unlikely I'd be able to put a show together, and I don't even know if I come home quite in time. Yeah, I might just have to skip next week, because then as soon as I get home, I'm working a couple extra days at my day job so that I can take this coming weekend off. Does that make sense? Usually I work on the weekends, but I've scheduled my days so that I'm working on either side. I'm working, fly out New York. Soon as I get back to work. So yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to do a show next week. If that changes, I'm somehow able to do it that night or the next night, I'll put up a placeholder image and announce it. But just to set expectations, I don't think it's realistic that I'll be able to fit it in next week. So yeah, just thought I'd put that out there. Sorry, hope that's okay to skip a single week, but then I'll be back the week after, and I'm sure I'll have a lot of news coming out of New York Comic Con to talk about with everybody. Thanks. Tell you what, 2 double salutes, because you might not get one next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Bye.